Hey guys, tonight we're going back in time way, back to ancient Rome. But not to sit in a toga and eat grapes. No, tonight you have a job. You're the unfortunate soul assigned to clean the blood-soaked floor of the Roman Colosseum after a gladiator match. The sun hasn't risen yet, but you're already being marched through narrow stone corridors that smell like copper and yesterday's terror. You step into the arena, still cloaked in pre-dawn shadows, and the silence is oddly heavy, like the ghosts of yesterday's screams are still echoing somewhere behind the stone columns. You pause. That's not fog clinging to the ground. It's steam rising off the floor, where blood and morning chill collide. You take one cautious step forward and hear the squish. Bad idea. You didn't wear boots. You didn't know you'd need boots. Your feet are now marinating in something. A stew of sand, blood, sweat, and maybe a rogue bit of lung. And that's just your first step. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. So drop that in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're barely inside the Colosseum, and already you wish you had taken that job selling bread near the Forum, or even joining the Navy. At least there, when people bled, it wasn't your job to scrape it up afterward. Your supervisor, if you can call a guy who just grunted and handed you a leaky bucket, a supervisor, points toward the center of the arena. That's where most of the blood pooled last night. You know, where the lion got a little too excited about a Thracian's femur. You take another step and realize something about this place. It's huge. The arena floor stretches wide, ringed by rows upon rows of towering stone seats. You spot vultures perched way up at the top, waiting like cheap theatergoers who didn't buy a ticket but still want a show. Their heads twitch as they watch you. Maybe they think you're just another unlucky soul who didn't make it out last. Night. The sand beneath your feet is a muddy, sticky mess, darkened in patches where blood dried too fast to soak in. No one tells you how to clean this. There's no manual, no training. You just start. Drag the sand with a rake, scoop the soaked parts, toss them into a wheelbarrow, and spread fresh sand on top. It's like making a pizza if the sauce was tragedy. Historians still argue whether the Romans used salt or lime in the sand to help with sanitation. What's clear is that they didn't use enough of either, because nothing about this job smells even remotely sanitized. Your eyes water, not from emotion, not yet. Just from the sting of iron and vinegar in the air. You pause to catch your breath, and that's when you notice the silence. It's not peaceful, it's anticipatory. As if the walls remember what happened yesterday. As if the floor knows what's coming tomorrow. This place, this arena, it breathes in blood and exhales memory. You spot the remains of a wooden prop, a fake palm tree that got knocked over in the scuffle. It's stained too. Somehow, even the props bleed here. You laugh. Quietly. You have to. The only thing keeping you sane is sarcasm and the faint hope that someday, someone might invent soap. A fellow cleaner trudges past you with a wheelbarrow full of bloody sand. His eyes meet yours for a second. No words, just a glance that says, "Don't step on the jawbone near the east gate, it's still twitching." You wonder what kind of person built this place. That's not metaphorical. You genuinely wonder, who was the architect? Did they sit at a drafting table and think, you know what this needs? Better blood drainage. Because that's the thing beneath this floor. There's an entire network of tunnels, elevators, and trapdoors. The hypogeum. The bones beneath the beast. You'll get there eventually. But not yet. For now, your battlefield is the surface. Mainstream. Fact, the Colosseum could seat around 50,000 spectators and was built over a decade starting under Emperor Vespasian. But it wasn't just a stadium, it was a statement. Rome was power. Rome was spectacle. Rome was really bad at waste management. You step forward again, trying to ignore the squelch, and suddenly your broom catches on something. You freeze. Please let it be a rock. Nope, it's a tooth, a molar. Still white, still surprisingly shiny. You set it on the edge of the rake like it's a lost coin and move on. That's someone's problem later. And yet, despite everything, the smell, the silence, the smear of horror across the floor, you notice something else. The light. It's rising slowly, pouring through the upper arches in thin golden beams. Dust dances inside the shafts, almost pretty if you squint past the blood mist. And for a moment, just a moment, it almost feels holy. But then your broom handle snaps in half, and you're left holding a splintered stick in one hand and your dignity in the other. You're still standing there, holding the two halves of your broom like a confused gladiator who brought a flute to a sword fight. The arena, vast and empty, doesn't care. A few pigeons flap noisily overhead, and somewhere in the distance, water drips. You sigh. No replacement broom. No help. Just you, some broken wood, and an overwhelming sense of poor life choices. So you improvise. You grip the longer half and drag it like a plow across the arena floor. It doesn't sweep so much as smear, but at this point, you tell yourself it's redistributing the organic content. That sounds official. Fancy, like something a Roman bureaucrat would say before passing off the mess to someone like you. You squat down to examine the floor. Marble tiles peek through beneath the sand in some places. They were white once. Imported from Tunisia or Greece, historians still argue which region supplied the most. Now they're mostly pinkish, the kind of pink you get when red never quite washes out. That's the problem. Stone remembers. And you're the one stuck trying to make it forget. You drag your palm across a groove in the tile. It's deeper than it should be. Not erosion blade marks. The marble's been cut, gashed, over and over again by steel, hooves, claws. Each nick a tiny fossil of violence. You blink slowly, your brain already slipping into that half-sleepy rhythm. The one where your body keeps moving, but your mind's drifting. The Colosseum does that to you. It's hypnotic. Or maybe it's the blood fumes. You snap out of it as your hand slips on something slick. Not sand, not stone. Something fleshy. You don't look. Not really. You sort of glance with one eye, enough to register that it was part of someone. And now it's part of you, on your palm, smearing your tunic. Congratulations, you're officially blessed by the arena. You shuffle sideways, avoiding another dark stain that might be blood or might be olive tapenade. In Rome, you can never really tell. It hits you again how little the sand actually helps. You'd think, with all this violence, the Romans would invent a better absorbent. But no, sand is the go-to. They throw it down before matches, during matches, after matches. Blood gets soaked, covered, forgotten, until the next layer of carnage uncovers the last. One cleaner you met said it was like painting with red watercolor on a beige canvas. No matter how much you add, the stains from yesterday still peek through. You drag your broken broom-turned scraper across a patch of dried something and wonder how long it's been there. Days? Weeks? The Colosseum hosts games constantly. There's barely time between events to do any serious scrubbing. You're not here to sanitize. You're here to disguise. It's like Rome's idea of janitorial work is theater. As long as the blood looks fresh, the crowd's happy. The nobles won't notice. They're too busy betting on who'll lose their head faster. You crouch again and sprinkle more sand from your sack. The grains hit the floor with a dry hiss, masking the stain like powdered makeup on a bruise. That's your job, covering trauma like a street magician. You think back to yesterday's show. You weren't supposed to watch, but you always hear it. The roars, the screams, the crunches, and that strange, sharp silence that follows a kill like the air itself flinches. You sometimes peek through the grates. You shouldn't, but you do. Everyone does that. Yesterday, there was a net fighter Riciarius light on his feet, dancing between two heavier opponents with tridents. It didn't end well. The sand's still wet from that ending. You're currently kneeling in the splash zone, mainstream. Fact time. Gladiators didn't always fight to the death. Many were expensive investments. But when the crowd wanted blood, especially when an emperor needed a distraction, mercy was less fashionable. You just hoped nobody was too distracted to clean up the aftermath. Oh wait, that's you again. A fringe theory you once overheard from a particularly chatty cleaner with a limp was that the sand was occasionally dyed red ahead of time, a kind of pre-blood aesthetic, decorative violence. Historians debate whether that's true, but it does explain why some patches of sand smell oddly like crushed berries. Your nostrils twitch. There it is again, that sour, sweet aroma. Not quite wine, not quite vinegar. Somewhere in the overlap between last night's bloodbath and Caesar's picnic. And then there's the crunch. Your heel sinks into something brittle. You lift your sandal and find the remains of a bird skull. Possibly pigeon. Possibly not. In Rome, even the wildlife is expendable. You flick it aside with your stick broom and mutter an apology to whatever miner. God governs avian remains. Someone whistles in the distance, your supervisor, probably. You look up and realize you've cleaned a 6-foot patch in the last hour. At this rate, you'll finish the arena around ... never. The Colosseum looms above you, not just as a stadium, but as a hungry monument. You can't help but think about how this place was funded. Spoiler: loot from the sack of Jerusalem, according to most records. Built with the spoils of war to celebrate more war. History sure knows how to recycle, doesn't it? You pause and gaze up at the walls. The seating's empty now, but you swear you can still hear echoes. The clapping, the shouting, the rhythmic chant of a bloodthirsty crowd demanding jugula. Jugula, throat, throat. You don't speak much Latin, but that word sticks. You whisper it to yourself without realizing. Jugula. A pigeon squawks in reply. You nod solemnly. Fair enough, you move to the next stain. You're now on your third stain, which is not bad considering the size of the arena and your weapon of choice being half a broomstick. This one's dried darker than the others, nearly black. Dried blood has that uncanny ability. It turns from crimson drama to quiet charcoal. You scrape at it with the edge of your stick, and it flakes like burnt crust. You're suddenly craving flatbread. That's probably not a good sign. The sand here is thin, too thin. And underneath, stone. Slick, unforgiving marble. It's angled just slightly so blood trickles toward the center, where it can pool inconvenient. Little lakes of suffering. You realize, horrified, that this was intentional. The floor was engineered to make blood easier to clean. Someone sat down, probably sipping watered-down wine, and thought, let's make the floor slightly concave so the gore gathers neatly. Historians still argue whether this was an accident of design or sheer sadistic brilliance. But standing, knee-deep in sand soaked with former humans, you're leaning toward brilliance. Horrible, mop-averse brilliance. You wipe your forehead with your tunic, forgetting that your tunic is covered in everything. Congratulations, you've just transferred a piece of someone's spleen to your temple. That's fine. That's Roman skincare. In a few centuries, someone will charge coins for this at a bathhouse. You hear footsteps slow, scraping ones. You look up, squinting into the morning light now beginning to seep through the upper arches. It's your fellow cleaner, Marcellus. He's missing 3 fingers on his left hand, courtesy of a collapsing lion cage last year. He doesn't talk much, but he nods at you like a man who understands this very specific misery. He tosses something your way. You flinch, duck instinctively, because when people throw things in the Colosseum, it's usually heads. But it's just a rag. Marcellus grins, or maybe he just has a weird face. Hard to tell. You nod your thanks, then wipe your broomstick. With it, the rag now looks like something that committed a crime. Your bucket leaks. That's the next problem, Dot. It's a wooden contraption held together with twine, prayer, and a broken promise. Every time you scoop water from the nearby basin, more like a puddle in a shaded corner, it drips steadily back to the earth, like it's ashamed of participating in this madness. You think about going to the aqueduct spigot, but you're not. Allowed. That's for the clean workers, those who sweep the marble steps and occasionally get to say things like, "Yes, Senator, right this way." You're what's called a sanguinis labor, a blood laborer, an unskilled bottom-tier worker tasked with keeping Rome's crown jewel from becoming a bacterial swamp. Mainstream fact. Roman arenas relied heavily on enslaved workers and poor freemen to maintain the spectacle. Some were trained animal handlers or stage riggers. You are neither. You are disposable. Replaceable. Not even worth a name on a ledger, unless it's the casualty log. You kneel again and try scrubbing with your rag. It doesn't help. It mostly just pushes things around, like an existential Roomba. You sigh, loudly this time. No one hears you. That's kind of the theme here. Suddenly, something moves beside you. You jump hard, skipping several perfectly. Good beats, and turn to see a small lizard darting across the tiles. You watch it with envy. It's small, fast, and doesn't have to deal with sticky sand or leaky buckets. Unless lizard gladiators are a thing. You hope not. The lizard stops at a crack in the floor, then disappears down it. That crack wasn't there yesterday. You know, because you spent an hour trying to scrub that section and nearly dislocated a hip. You kneel again, examining it. A new crack in ancient marble? Interesting. Quirky fact. Some people believe the Colosseum was cursed, built on the site of Emperor Nero's old palace, which was torn down to erase his legacy. Ancient karma, if you believe in that sort of thing. And right now, with your knees soaked in ghost juice and lizards leading you into cursed fissures, you kind of do. You shift your weight and hear a click. A tile gives a little under pressure. You freeze. This is either very bad or very interesting. You press again, click. Nothing else. You let out a slow breath. Maybe it's just settling. Or maybe you're standing on a hidden compartment filled with lions. Rome has a habit of turning every surprise into a lion, but nothing leaps out. No trapdoors. No emperor's secret bathtub. Just a suspicious tile and a mental note to avoid stepping there again. You move on. That's the job. Move, scrub, cover. Repeat. You step into a new patch, and your sandal sinks in deeper than expected. Uh-oh, that's not sand. You wiggle your foot and pull it out slowly. It comes free with a pop, followed by the unmistakable aroma of decay. Congratulations, you found an organ pit. Not official, of course, just a low spot where someone forgot to collect pieces. You gag. Not dramatically, just a quiet little. the trail of your throat. You look around, hoping no one saw. Marcellus is gone again, probably laughing in a corner. You promise yourself a double portion of barley mash tonight if you don't throw up. As you trudge away, something new catches your eye. Carvings. On the base of the podium wall, where the marble meets the arena floor, someone has scratched up. Message. You crouch and squint. Lucius was here, now he's not. Run. You stare at it, then laugh a dry, exhausted wheeze that sounds vaguely like a deflating wineskin. You consider adding your own message. Maybe something like, still, cleaning, still alive, send sandals, the sun's rising higher now. You can see shadows shifting against the upper rows. Pigeons flap and coo above. The arena, even empty, feels full. Not with people just presence, like the walls themselves are. Watching, and you, little mob soldier, are just trying to finish one more stain before breakfast. You've been at it for what feels like several eternities, or about 30 minutes, give or take a few moral crises. By now, your shoulders ache, your knees pop every time you crouch, and your spine has filed a formal complaint with the gods. Welcome to Roman ergonomics. The floor is pain, and the broom is optional. The steward finally shows up. You recognize him by the smell of olives and authority. He doesn't speak, just waves a hand toward a nearby pile and mutters something that sounds vaguely like intestines. Then he's gone again, disappearing into a marble corridor like a toga-wrapped fog machine. You sigh and shuffle toward your next assignment. A wooden shovel leans against the wall, splintered, warped, and soaked at the base. You're not sure if it's stained with wine, water, or someone's pancreas. Either way, it's your tool now. Because guess what? You're no longer sweeping. You're shoveling. This part of the arena isn't blood-soaked, it's chunk-soaked. Bits and pieces. Bones, cloth, what might be a thumb. And what you're really hoping is just a roasted fig. You try not to look too closely. You jab the shovel under the pile and immediately regret your life. It sticks. Everything's sticky. The shovel groans like it's doing the work for the first time since Julius Caesar had hair. You heave, and the whole mess lifts with a wet squelch that echoes like an accusation. You dump it into a barrel. The barrel responds with a soft thunk, which could be the sound of wood hitting bone, or bone hitting bone. Either way, you close the lid and pretend you've just taken out the recycling. A rat scurries by, dragging what might be a sandal or a rib. You make brief eye contact. The rat looks at you with the kind of judgment only a fellow janitor can offer. You nod in mutual respect. Then it vanishes under the seats. Mainstream fact: the Romans recycled arena sand. Not metaphorically, they literally scooped up the saturated sand, sifted out the larger elements, dried it in the sun, and reused it for the next day's slaughter. You're currently doing phase 1 of that process, removing the non-sand bits, the premium chunks. You wedge the shovel under another glob of fabric and realize it's not fabric, it's leather, armor, what's left of it. The name Cassius is still etched in the side. You pause. You remember that name. He was the one with the red feathers and the annoying victory pose. You watched him strut like a peacock last week. Guess he flew too close to the lions. You gently set the leather aside. Maybe someone will want it. Maybe not. Either way, it's no longer your problem. You keep shoveling. The sun's higher now, which is both good and bad. Good, because you can finally see what you're doing. Bad, because you can now see what you're doing. The colors are too vivid. Browns, reds, purples. The occasional unsettling yellow. No filter. just Roman realism. You accidentally step in something mushy. You don't look. You simply back away slowly and pretend it was nothing. That's your strategy now. Strategic denial. The cornerstone of every successful career. Someone whistles behind you. You flinch hard, but it's not danger, just a vendor. He's walking the upper levels, preparing snacks for the next crowd. You smell roasted almonds and feel the sting of betrayal. Somewhere, someone's eating a warm pastry while you're ankle deep in gladiators leftovers. Quirky tidbit time. Roman vendors sold everything during the game's fig cakes, honeyed nuts, even fried dormice. Yes, dormice. Little rodents seasoned and stuffed. You once tried one. Tasted like defeat. A large shadow crosses the sand. You freeze that. It's a lion. Not close, but close enough. In a cage, half covered by a curtain, being wheeled offstage. 2. Handlers push the cart, sweating and muttering Latin that's mostly curses. The lion stares at you as it passes. You stare back. It blinks. You blink. Somewhere in that exchange, a pact is formed. Neither of you is happy to be here. You return to your shovel. The sand beneath your feet is warm now. The sun's baking it, locking the blood into a kind of crust. That makes it harder to move, but also easier to pretend it's just dirt. You like that. You can work with lies. You glance at the crowd seats, empty, but not quiet. Up in the nosebleeds, someone's already walking the perimeter. A cleaner like you, but fancier. They're dusting benches and adjusting cushions for the senators who will arrive later. You envy them. Their job is theater dressing. Yours is theater disposal. Historians still debate whether specific. Cleaning crews had assigned sections in the Colosseum arena versus seating. Upper class versus lower, but one thing's clear. Nobody wanted your job. Even by ancient standards. You're the mop beneath the chariot wheels. You hear a shout and turn instinctively. It's one of the stewards, yelling at a cage door that won't latch. 2 men are struggling to hold back a nervous bull, another star of tomorrow's performance. You wonder if bulls ever get stage fright. You definitely do. Every time you enter this arena, it feels like walking onto a set where the play ended. Yesterday, but the blood never left. Your shovel gets caught again, this time on a bone. A large one. Too large. You poke at it gently, hoping it's just a prop dot. It's not. You wedge the shovel under it and pry. It comes loose with a thud and a small cloud of sand. You stare at it, unsure if it's a thigh bone or the world's least appropriate flute. You carry it to the barrel, humming a dirge as you go. Just another piece of history. No big deal dot by now. You've filled 2 barrels and half a wheelbarrow. Your arms feel like soup. Your spine is writing a breakup letter to the rest of your body. But you keep going. Because here, in Rome's biggest theater of death, the show may be over, but the cleanup? That's the real performance. By now, the sun is fully awake, which is more than can be said for you. The arena glows gold under the Roman sky, and you, dear custodian of calamity, are starting to smell like a battlefield in a bread oven. Sweat clings to your skin in sticky patches, mixing freely with the grime of the morning's labor. You're unsure if your tunic is wet from water, blood, or your own tears. Probably all 3. It's a sort of Roman blend limited edition, never released again. The crowd hasn't arrived yet, but the staff buzz has begun. You can hear the clanging of gates, the bellowing of handlers corralling wild animals, and the barked orders of overseers, who somehow always look clean. Meanwhile, you're dragging a broomstick that now resembles a wounded animal. It's just afternoon when the first real problem hits. Your shift is supposed to end soon, if such things can be measured in a job. With no clocks, no lunch breaks, and no union. But the steward waves you over again, pointing toward the east end of the arena. "Spotty," he says. "You know what that means. It's code for the blood there smells too fresh, and someone might ask questions. So off you go toward the spotty section. The sand here is unusually dark, and it's not just from blood. It's damp, wet, fresh, which is weird, because there hasn't been a fight in hours. You kneel and touch the sand cold and sticky, a fresh pool, which can only mean someone or something bled here after the last show ended. Historians still argue whether gladiators who survived were sometimes disappeared after the crowd left. If they offended someone powerful or were simply inconvenient, the night shift may have doubled as cleanup and execution crew. Judging by the look of this patch, you might be stepping into exactly that kind of accident. You scan the area and spot drag marks along lazy grooves where something heavy was pulled away. You follow them, past a broken wheelbarrow, past a discarded helmet, to a corner of the arena floor shielded by shadows, and there it is, a patch of blood with no body. Just red sand and an eerie silence. You know better than to ask questions. But questions are all your mind wants to do now. Who was it? Why here? Why after the crowd had left? You start shoveling again. Only now, it feels less like cleaning and more like erasing. The silence here is heavier, deeper. Even the pigeons avoid this corner. The air is cooler, but not in a refreshing way. More like the breath of a crypt. You work faster, hoping speed will chase off the unease. But the more you dig, the more you find bits of leather, splinters. From a wooden shield, something that might have been a belt or a tourniquet. Hard to tell. Either way, it belonged to someone who's now officially no longer available for comment. Your hands tremble a bit. Maybe it's exhaustion, maybe not. You dump another pile of sand over the stain and try to pretend it never happened. And just as you're about to leave, you hear it. A low groan. Faint, wet, real. You freeze, breath caught mid-throat. Slowly, you turn your head toward a stack of amphorae near the gate. Something or someone is behind them, breathing. Injured. Alive. You walk carefully, step by step, each foot sinking into the sand like it's trying to hold you back. You peek behind the stack and see him. A gladiator, slumped, bleeding from a gash along his ribs. Still in partial armor, still clutching a weapon barely. He sees you and blinks. Once, slowly. His lips move, but no sound comes out. You stand there, broomstick in hand, utterly unequipped for this. Your job is to clean blood, not negotiate with the source of it. And yet, here you are. You crouch, not too close. He's not dead, but he's not dangerous either. You glance around. No guards, no stewards, just you and him. And a lot of unasked questions. He tries to speak again. You lean closer. He whispers one word, coin. You check your belt pouch. 1 coin, copper, worth maybe half a meal. You hold it up. He shakes his head, slowly lifts a shaky hand and taps his lips, mouth. You frown, confused, until you realize he's asking for a death coin, for Karen, for the afterlife. He's trying to die properly. You hesitate, then gently place the coin on his tongue. His hand drops, his eyes close, and just like that, he's still. Mainstream Roman belief held that a coin in the mouth would pay the ferryman to cross the river Styx. It's not required. Exactly, but you figure it's better than letting his soul wander the chi. Arena for eternity. You stand, heart pounding louder than the sounds of hammers behind the walls. You don't tell anyone. You just walk away. Back to your shovel, back to your barrel, and the shift continues that no one checks on you. No one questions why you took longer. Because no one really cares what happens down here, so long as the floor is clean by the time the crowd returns. Quirky fact, some historians believe the arena sand was occasionally perfumed before major games. Not out of kindness, just to mask the stench for the wealthy. Meanwhile, you're scrubbing blood off marble with a vinegar rag that's older than your socks. You return to your section and get back to work. Kneeling, scooping, dumping. The repetition dulls your nerves, like a lullaby made of violence. And yet, part of your mind stays behind, with that man in the shadows. His eyes, his breath. That quiet word, coin. It loops in your head as you clean. Over and over, until it becomes just another rhythm in your shift. You scrub harder now, like the blood might forget you saw that man. Like the floor might erase the memory from your brain if you just clean it hard enough. But Roman marble has a way of remembering things, and so does sand. That's the real horror of your job, not the gore, not the smell, not even the ghosts. It's the knowing. The slow, creeping awareness that the Colosseum likes to keep secrets. And you're the one mopping around them. Your tunic sticks to your back as the sun climbs higher. Rome is boiling by early afternoon, and you're essentially baking in an open-air oven lined with death. You pause to wipe your face with the less bloody part of your sleeve spoiler. It's a very small part, and glance at your hands. Red, cracked, raw. The vinegar in the cleaning water eats at your skin like guilt. Someone said it kills germs. You're not sure germs even want to live here. Quirky fact, Roman vinegar, or acetum, wasn't the fancy kind you drizzle over salad. It was usually sour, borderline rancid, and often used by soldiers as a cleaning agent, mixed with water. You joke that your blood-scrubbing mixture could strip paint if any of the arena walls were lucky enough to still have paint. You reach for your bucket. It's empty again. Of course it is. You drag it toward the back, where a sorry excuse for a fountain coughs up a thin trickle of water from the aqueduct. But not for you. That's reserved for higher-ranked workers. You get the runoff, a little side basin at the back, half-shadowed and always suspiciously warm. You dip the bucket in. The water turns pink almost immediately. Either the rag was still soaked or the basin's been used for other things. You try not to think about it. At least it's wet, and that's more than most things in your life right now. Historians still argue whether arena workers were officially employed or simply pulled from enslaved labor pools when needed. Either way, the result is the same. You're here, unpaid, unthanked, and unwashed. And the sand keeps piling up. You trudge back to your section and pour the vinegar water onto a dark smear. It bubbles slightly. That's your favorite part, when it bubbles. It feels like the stain is fighting back, and you're winning. A little. Then the wind changes. It's subtle at first. A shift in the air, a faint breeze that threads its way through the stone tunnels and sweeps across the arena floor. With it comes the smell, not just of blood and sweat, but of decay. Old decay. The kind that seeps into stone and becomes permanent. You pause, rag in hand, and take a slow breath through your nose. Big mistake. It's like sniffing a history book. No one wanted to read. Your eyes water. Your stomach lurches. But you're used to it. Mostly. And then you hear it. The buzzing. Flies. Lots of them. Somewhere nearby, something is ripe. Something's been missed. You glance around, trying to spot the source, and there it is in the far west corner of the pit, behind a stack of props and spare sand barrels, a lump, covered in canvas, not labeled, not moving. You should report it, but you don't, because you already know what it is. So you approach. Each step closer brings more flies. They rise in lazy clouds, hovering in loops like they're drunk on decay. You reach the lump and lift the corner of the canvas just enough to confirm what your gut already knew: a body, unclaimed, forgotten, partially chewed. You drop the canvas and step back, wiping your hands on a rag that somehow feels even more inappropriate now. You don't scream. That's the thing. After a few weeks in the Colosseum, you stop screaming. The horror doesn't go away. It just gets filed under normal. You return to your section and get back to work. What else is there? The sun is blinding now. Light beams down through the arches, making the arena glow like a stage before the next act. You squint up at the seats, now empty, but not for long. The crowd will return soon, bringing noise, coin, and appetite. And none of them will see you. Not really. You're invisible here. Even to the ghosts. Mainstream fact: the Colosseum could host up to 80 days of games in a single celebration. That's nearly 3 months of near-daily bloodshed, which means 3 months of cleanup. Every single night, you spot a new stain forming, bright red, still wet. You raise your broom instinctively, then stop. It's dripping. You look up, and there, above the archway, is a slumped body wedged into the upper beams. A worker, or maybe a performer, or maybe someone who fell and was never found. You can't tell. You make a note to not clean that area. It's above your pay grade, which is impressive since you don't even have a pay grade. You return to your section and begin shoveling again. The sand feels heavier. Maybe it's your arms. Maybe it's your soul. Marcellus walks by again, this time pushing a cart of broken helmets and cracked shields. He nods at you, and you nod back. Nothing needs to be said. You're both just surviving. At least for now. You glance down at your hands again. They're trembling. You tell yourself it's fatigue, not fear. But deep down, you know, this place changes people. Not quickly, slowly, like rust, like rot. And all you can do is keep sweeping, keep shoveling, keep pretending you don't see the stains that won't come out. Because here in the Colosseum, you're not just cleaning blood, you're part of it now. You're halfway through the day, or what counts as halfway, when time has melted into a sticky reddish smear. Your hands are numb, your tunic is sticking to parts of you that don't deserve this betrayal, and your bucket is now more whole than container. But the work doesn't care. It keeps coming, wave after wave, stain after stain. And then the lion growls. You freeze. Not a distant roar. Not a theatrical bellow echoing from some far-off cage. No, this one is close, low, guttural, displeased. You slowly turn your head toward the northern archway, one of the underground lifts used to raise animals into the arena during shows. The wooden platform is up, and on it, in full golden glory, lies a lion. No handler, no cage, no chains. Just lion. And you. For a moment, you both stare. Him, mane rustling slightly in the breeze. You, holding a soggy broomstick and reconsidering your entire life. Historians still argue whether animals were kept in cages while they waited under the Colosseum, or only caged before being released. Judging by the current situation, someone forgot step 2. You wonder if this lion is early for his act or late for lunch. He doesn't move, just watches. You swallow, slowly edge sideways. You don't break eye contact because every bad idea Begins with, I looked away. The broom is clutched like a spear, though in your hands it's more of a mildly judgmental toothpick. The lion's eyes follow you, lazily, curiously. He blinks, yawns, and then does something far more terrifying. Then growl. He lies back down. You don't relax. You don't breathe. You just shuffle backward, foot by slow foot, until you've reached the nearest column and duck behind it like a child playing hide and seek with death. A few heartbeats pass. Still breathing? Yes, still intact. Miraculously, you peek around. The column. The lion is still lying there, swishing his tail like he's bored of you already. Maybe he is. Maybe you don't even rank high enough to eat. It's both insulting and comforting. You glance around and spot one of the animal handlers, a few corridors away, frantically gesturing, pale as a senator at tax time. You mouth, yours? And he nods vigorously, then sprints in the opposite direction. Classic, quirky fact. Roman lions weren't just from Africa. Some were imported from Syria, Armenia, and even India, part of the empire's exotic animal trade. Which means this majestic murder cat might have traveled farther than you ever will. You take your moment and retreat. You don't run because that feels like cheating, but your brisk walk could definitely qualify for a speed walking competition. Back in the southern pit, far from your new feline coworker, you take a deep breath. The kind that smells like copper and regret. Then you get back to work, because apparently, even with a lion on the floor, the show and the mopping must go on. You start sweeping again, more focused than ever. Distraction here means death. Not in the dramatic, poetic way, just the messy, unphotogenic kind. Your next patch of sand is oddly light in color, almost pink. Someone cleaned it before you? Maybe. Or maybe it's just fresher than the rest. You kneel and press your palm to it. Still. Warm. That single quotes. Unsettling. You scoop and rake, careful not to disturb whatever's buried just beneath. That's another unspoken rule. If it's not moving, don't ask what it used to be. Marcellus appears again, this time leading a mule cart full of broken props, spears, helmets, fake trees, and what appears to be a mannequin dressed like a goddess. He mutters, "Don't go near the east lift." One of the tigers got loose. You raise an eyebrow. I thought it was a lion. He shrugs. Maybe it's a lion pretending to be a tiger. Maybe the tiger ate the lion. Either way, it's your lunch break. You blink. We get lunch breaks? Marcellus gestures toward a stone alcove under the seating tiers. 15 minutes. No sleeping. No dying. You follow him, not entirely convinced that this isn't some kind of trap. But, he pulls out 2 small bundles wrapped in cloth rye bread, some olives, and a fig or two. Luxury, really. You sit together, backs against a cold wall, staring out at the vast, sunlit death pit you're expected to tidy like it's a spilled cup of wine. You ever think, you say between bites, that we're part of the show too? Marcellus chews, swallows, only when the animals look hungry. Silence stretches out between you. It's not uncomfortable. It's the quiet of shared absurdity. You break a fig in half and pass it over. He takes it without a word. Mainstream fact. Arena staff often included engineers, riggers, and carpenters working alongside animal handlers and janitorial crews. Some earned actual wages. Most earned only blisters and the occasional look from a lion. Your break ends too soon, as they always do. You both rise, stretch, groan, return to your tasks. The lion is gone now, probably recaptured, or napping in a senator's box seat. You resume sweeping near the podium wall, where the elites sit during the shows. Here, The bloodstains are lighter, less frequent. Probably because the nobles don't bleed in public, just in private, with daggers. In politics, you spot a ring on the ground gold, thin with a green stone. You pick it up, turn it over, no engraving. You pocket it without thinking. Finders keepers, as the Roman legal system might have said, unless a centurion disagrees. You hear a horn in the distance, a low echoing tone that means one thing. The next show begins soon. Time to make it look clean. Not be clean, just look it. You spread a fresh layer of sand across the messiest sections. Rake it flat. Brush away anything too obviously shaped like a femur. And as the crowd starts filing in, you retreat to the shadows. Out of sight, out of mind. You hear the roar begin not from animals this time, but from people. Tens of thousands shouting, laughing, hungry for spectacle. And beneath it all, the floor still holds yesterday's stories. You just changed the color of the ending. The crowd's roar rolls over you like a physical wave. You're back behind the podium wall now, tucked into the shadows with your broom, your rag, and your newest injury, a splinter in your thumb roughly the size of a javelin. You try to ignore the pain that's become your specialty, ignoring things. Like the scream you just heard that sounded suspiciously not rehearsed. You peek around the marble column. The arena is alive again. Where, just hours ago, you were shoveling up entrails and whispering coins into the mouths of the dead, now stands a lineup of muscular men in gleaming armor. A few wave to the crowd. One is trying to adjust his helmet and is clearly regretting last night's wine decisions. Another stares directly forward, lips moving in silent prayer or perhaps silent negotiation, and at their feet your sand. Meticulously spread, carefully smoothed, ready to be torn apart all over again. Historians still argue whether the arena was ever truly sterile before matches. Most agree it wasn't. The goal wasn't hygiene, it was aesthetic. Blood on clean sand is dramatic, visually pleasing. The contrast helps the audience follow the action, and helps the vendors know when to start selling more roasted chickpeas. You step back into the corridor. You're not allowed to be seen during the games. You're part of the invisible machine. The stage resets itself magically, they like to think. The nobles sip wine, the plebeians shout bets, and not a single one pauses to wonder who clears out the femurs between acts. You've got time before the first intermission. That's when the real work starts again, clearing away any surprises. The animals or poorly trained performers might leave behind. So you head backstage. The underbelly of the Colosseum is a world unto itself. Dimly lit tunnels snake beneath the stands, connecting cages, prep rooms, and corridors lined with props. You pass a stack of fake trees used in jungle battles and a pile of wooden spears chewed at the ends by goats. For realism, obviously, you take a left into one of the storage chambers. It smells like damp rope and warm leather. And also something worse. Always something worse. You step over a cracked amphora. Inside, you find the rest of your kit. A scoop, a bag of fresh sand, and a rag that might have been white a century ago. You're lucky today. No one else grabbed it first. You continue on toward the holding pens. The animals are kept behind iron bars, tucked into stone alcoves that drip with condensation and tension. You pass lions, already pacing, bears snuffling and snoring. A leopard licks its paw, staring at you like you owe it something. You don't make eye contact. That's a lesson you learned very early. Then you pass the humans, the gladiators. There. Not in chains, not most of them. Some are stretching. Others are sleeping. One is sharpening a blade, humming a tune you vaguely recognize from taverns near the Forum. And one, just one, is staring directly at you. He's covered in scars. But it's the eyes that get you. Clear, unblinking, like he's memorizing your face. You don't know why. You're not a fighter. Not even a water boy. You're the guy with the mop. Still, you nod. He nods back. Just once. And then you move on. Quirky fact. Some gladiators had fan clubs. Crowds cheered their favorite fighters. Women wrote love letters in blood. But backstage, they were just men. Men waiting to bleed again. You finally reach your post for intermission. A corner near the stage lifts, where wounded men and animals are dragged off before the audience sees too much. That's your cue to clean up without breaking the illusion. You hear the trumpets blare overhead, another match beginning. You don't look. You just listen. Clash, roar, cheer, and then silence. The kind that means someone's fallen. You grip your scoop tighter. Mainstream fact. Between matches, the arena crew worked fast. Dead bodies were hauled out, blood was raked over, and broken weapons replaced in mere minutes. The crowd rarely saw the mess. You're the reason why. A steward passes by and grunts. Be ready. They're sending one down soon. A leg's missing. Cool, casual, like ordering a sandwich. You nod and kneel. Sure enough. Within moments, two handlers drag a body onto the lift. The man is unconscious or already gone. Hard to tell. Blood drips from the corner of the platform. One leg ends abruptly. At the thigh, they dump him onto the floor like luggage, then vanish. You rush in. Not to help. Helping is above your rank, but to keep the floor from becoming a slip hazard. You mop beneath the platform quickly, then shovel sand over the fresh red puddle. It clumps, smells sharp. You push it toward the drainage grate and pretend not to hear the breath catch in the man's throat. He's not dead. Not yet. You glance at him, young, maybe 18, maybe less. He looks at you. Doesn't speak, just stares. His face is pale, eyes wide. You nod to him. It's all you can offer. Then you reach into your belt and tear a piece of cloth from your tunic. You press it gently to his wound, not to save him, just to slow the blood. Just a little. Thanks, he mouths. No sound. Just that one word. Then another handler appears and shoves you aside. Move, not your job. You move. Back to your corner, back to the scoop, back to the mess. The trumpet sounds again. Another match. Another fall. You get back to work. And the crowd above never stops cheering. You've been on your knees so long, you're convinced your legs have fused into a single broom-shaped limb. The Colosseum above is alive with sound-roaring cheers, clanging metal, a horn blowing off-key. But down here, in the pit where you're stationed, the only thing roaring is your spine. This part of the arena is known as the drop zone, where the worst of the cleanup collects. Why? Because gravity is not your friend. Blood flows down, gut piles roll down, and you? You were assigned to the lowest level of all, the arena floor's center pit, right at the heart of yesterday's main event. That's the thing no one talks about. There's a pecking order even among the cleaners. You'd think in a job where everyone's mopping intestines with vinegar, you'd all be equals. But no, the top-tier cleaners, let's call them the marble wipers, get to sweep the viewing tiers. They clean steps, dust railings, sometimes even chat with low-ranking senators who drop snack crumbs. They wear sandals. They don't reek of trauma. Then you've got the mid-level moppers, those who clean the entry tunnels and gladiator prep rooms. They get occasional shade, access to water that doesn't taste like it's passed through 6 different corpses, maybe even gloves. And then there's you. You, my friend, are a pit sweeper, or as the others like to call you, sponge of the underworld. Your section is the arena floor itself, ground zero for gore. This isn't just a floor, it's Rome's largest, sandiest sponge. And it absorbs everything. You shovel. You rake. You find things. Strange things. Today, it's a tooth. Just one, perfectly white. Still warm. Yesterday, it was a coin wedged under a clump of hair and probably dropped by a panicked victim mid-decapitation. And once, a tiny wooden figure, a carved child's toy, stained at the edges. You kept that one. It's in your belt pouch. You like to imagine it was lucky for someone. Not lucky enough, apparently. Mainstream fact. The Colosseum didn't just host gladiator games. Executions, animal hunts, mock sea battles, even theatrical. Plays with real deaths. If it could bleed or drown, it was part of the lineup. And guess where all of those ended? Right where you're kneeling. Today's cleanup includes yesterday's leftovers. You lift a piece of cloth, half buried in the sand. It's still damp. A woman's tunic, maybe. There was a public execution yesterday. A group of criminals sentenced for theft and ironically blasphemy. You're not sure how stealing bread equates to lion food, but Roman justice is like your mop. Blunt and often dirty. Historians still debate whether executions were scheduled early to warm up the crowd or saved for mid-show dramatic effect. Either way, no one asked your opinion. You're just the guy burying the aftershocks in fresh sand. You hear footsteps. Heavy ones. A steward approaches, clipboard in hand. He doesn't look at you. No one ever really does. But he mutters, "Cover." The drain with dry sand. Smells too strong. You nod. The drain is always a problem. Blood collects there, too thick to wash away fully, and without a proper flow, it stagnates. And when blood stagnates in Roman heat, well, let's just say even the flies refuse to land near it. You shovel a pile of fresh sand over the grate, patting it down like a baker smoothing icing over a very cursed cake nearby. The crowd roars again. You allow yourself a peek. Today's fighters are better than usual. Coordinated, dramatic. One even did a backflip after disarming his opponent. You hear someone shout his name, Crispus. Crispus. And the echo bounces off the stone like thunder. And still, no one notices the blood collecting at his feet. You do. And you know you'll be cleaning it in an hour. You turn back and spot something. You missed a stain stretching farther than expected, trailing off toward a hidden corridor under the podium. You follow it, dragging your tools behind you, your legs aching with each step. The corridor is quiet, dim, smells like cold stone and hot iron. You walk carefully, noting the faint drag marks in the sand. Someone was pulled this way recently. Very recently, you round the corner and find a stretcher. Empty now. Blood smeared across the fabric. A trail leading further into the shadows. But you stop. This part isn't your section. You're already in enough trouble with the steward for not shoveling with energy. Whatever that means, you kneel, clean what you can reach, and scatter fresh sand over the worst spots. Then, as you're rising, you hear someone whisper, "It's not Latin, it's not Greek, it's not even intelligible, just ... whispering. Faint, too faint to chase, too weird to ignore." You glance behind you. Empty. You glance above you. Still empty. You've heard stories, of course. Everyone has. The arena has ghosts. They don't scream. That would be theatrical. No, they whisper quietly, persistently, in voices like wind across sand. They speak to the cleaners mostly. Maybe because you're the ones who see the truth. Maybe because you're the ones who walk where the blood hasn't dried yet. Quirky theory. Some believe that each drop of blood spilled in the Colosseum left a stain on the soul of Rome itself. that the stone absorbed not just fluids, but memory. You feel that memory now. It clings to your skin, crawls under your nails, sits in your chest. You gather your tools and step back into the light. The sand gleams, golden and deceptive, pretty, clean, ready. The steward signals. Intermission's over. The crowd is louder than ever. The next fight begins. You shuffle to the side of the arena, ducking behind the wooden gates, your breath catching as the trumpet blares. A man walks out, then another. Both young, both shaking. You know exactly where they'll fall. You've already swept that spot twice today. And soon, you'll be back there again. By the time the sun begins to tilt westward, the arena floor has soaked up so much blood, it's starting to look like a painting. Not a nice one, more like a fever dream someone spilled wine on. You watch from your post behind the wooden gate as another fighter collapses near the central podium. The crowd explodes into cheers, chants, coin tosses. You feel none of it. Your only thought is, that's going to be a nightmare to scrape. The stewards are already motioning to the side crews, too. Handlers and a stretcher team hurry in. But even before the body's fully removed, the audience's attention has shifted. New opponents are stepping forward. Trumpets blare. More blood is expected. You wait. The moment between applause and cleanup is a brief, sour pause in your shift. You glance around and realize you're standing in the cursed quadrant, as the cleaners call it. Northeast corner of the pit. Nothing official, but nobody wants to work this section. Superstitions thrive here like mold in the bathhouse. Things go missing. Tools break. People trip. One cleaner swore he heard voices laughing under the sand. You always thought it was nonsense, but then again, the sand does feel different here. Your broom catches on a stone. You bend to dislodge it and spot something peculiar. The sand in this section forms a shallow spiral, like someone tried sweeping in circles and gave up halfway. You stop. No one sweeps in circles. That's rule 1. Not because it's inefficient, but because it's unlucky. The old cleaners say circular sweeping invites the dead to stick around. Something about trapping their souls in the pattern. You never really bought into it, but right now, standing in the spiral, you suddenly don't want to be here anymore. You rake across the circle once just to break it. A little superstition control never hurts. Then you glance behind you. No one there. Still, you feel watched. Historians still debate how seriously Romans took arena superstitions. Some chalk it up to workers' attempts to find control in chaos. Others think the rituals mattered. Blood was sacred, after all, tied to religion, death, and spectacle. Either way, you're not about to test the theory with your own soul. You move on, quickly. At the center of the pit, a new mess waits. Someone's head came off. Not cleanly. Not like in those ceremonial executions with the polished axe and the man in the fancy hat. This one tore like fabric. You can tell because the blood pattern doesn't fan out evenly. It's splattered, chaotic and fast. You kneel beside it. There's a shoe nearby. Just one. Still tied. You pick it up. It's small. Maybe the fighter was young. You imagine a boy wrapping the laces tightly before walking into the arena for the first and last time. You place the shoe on the platform where the handlers will eventually collect personal effects. If they remember, then you get to work on the stain. The blood has pooled unevenly, congealed at the edges, crusted near the toes. It's a mosaic. You pour vinegar water over it. It hisses like a snake. The sand soaks and clumps. You rake, scoop, discard. The usual rhythm, but then your broom breaks. Again, you stare at the snapped handle like it personally betrayed you. This is your third today. Supplies are getting thinner. Good wood is harder to come by since the last shipment from Hispania got rerouted to build siege ladders. Priorities that you trudge back to the storage closet. On the way, you pass the sand cart, a creaky wooden beast filled with fresh, dry sand, meant to refresh the arena between fights. You load a fresh bucket and continue on, leaving footprints like ghost tracks across the pit. Quirky tidbit: the sand used in the Colosseum wasn't just any sand, it was specially chosen. Fine-grained, pale, and absorbent. Imported, sometimes, from coastal regions. Not for practical reasons alone, but because pale sand shows blood better. A designer choice. The equivalent of using white linen for maximum stain contrast. You reach the supply room and dig through the pile of tools. What's left is sad. A split rake, a bent-handled scoop, and something that might have once been a broom, but now looks like a sad paintbrush with dreams of retirement. You take the scoop and return. Back in the cursed quadrant, the spiral is gone. But something else catches your eye. Footprints, new ones, small, barefoot, leading from the arena floor toward the lift. But you didn't see anyone walk there. And the sand's fresh. You follow them, slowly. They stop near the drainage grate dot, and then vanish. No exit prints. No drag marks. Just gone. You kneel again, examining the sand. It's undisturbed beyond. The last step, like the person simply vanished into air. You stand up, spine crackling, and look around. Nothing. No one. Just the quiet hum of flies and the rising cheers above. You scatter sand over the tracks. Not to erase them, just to make them less inviting. Some things don't want to be found, and you don't want to find them. The next trumpet call signals intermission again. Another chance to rake. Another chance to bury what shouldn't be seen. Steward appears. Keep it smooth this time, he barks. Emperor's son is coming tomorrow. We need the floor spotless. You resist the urge to point at your broom stump. Instead, you nod. Smile. Return to the mess. Because even when emperors visit, no one asks who cleaned the blood from the marble. They just assume it. Vanished. Like the footsteps. Like the fighters. Like you. By now, you've developed a technique that you're almost proud of, and elegant, if depressing, rhythm of rake, scoop, scatter, repeat. You move in arcs, like a tragic dancer performing a solo no one applauds. Your back throbs, your knees creak, and your hands are now permanently stained a reddish brown, like you've been finger painting with regret. You reach a particularly stubborn patch near the podium steps, dense, congealed, practically baked into the stone. No amount of raking will lift it. So you go to your special method, the blood grout. Yes, you are now a blood mechanic. From the canic. From the DAS. Supply closet, you grab a leather sack filled with fresh, pale sand. You kneel beside the stain, pour a thin layer over it, and begin kneading it in with the flat of your palm, mixing, folding, pressing. It's like making dough, if your recipe called for equal parts trauma and vinegar. Historians still argue whether this method of blood sand pressing was official, Roman protocol, or just something desperate cleaners invented to make the floor look good enough before the next fight. Either way, it's effective. The red seeps into the new sand, creating a muted rose color that doesn't scream decapitation. Quite so loudly. As you work, you notice something. The sand becomes heavy, not just wet heavy, like it's trying to anchor itself to the stone. You press harder, and the grains cling to your fingers in tiny clusters, resisting every motion. You mutter a quiet curse to the gods of flooring and fetch the wooden paddle, an improvised tool used to scrape compacted grime from between marble tiles. It's splintered, stained, and shaped like it was carved in anger. You wedge it under the edge of the patch and begin levering. With a crack, the crust lifts. Underneath, dark, wet stone, still bleeding, like the Colosseum itself is alive and not particularly happy with you. You back away, just slightly, then pour more sand, more vinegar, more denial. Quirky fact, Roman arena workers sometimes burned fragrant herbs like myrrh or laurel after major events to purify the grounds. You, however, have no herbs, only hope. And that's in short supply. You spot Marcellus across the arena, limping with his bucket like a gladiator who survived the wrong war. He waves the kind of half wave that says, "Still alive, unfortunately." You nod back. That's your friendship. Two blood-slicked thumbs barely above water. Your next patch lies beneath the stairs, where the shade keeps things moist longer. Always a good time. You crouch, and immediately the scent hits you. Sweet, sour, and unmistakably wrong. It's the smell of old blood, the kind that didn't dry but fermented. The kind that attracts flies, ghosts, and philosophical questions. You rake it once and hit something solid. You dig a little. Not enthusiastically more, like reluctantly. Like a child searching for a toy under the couch and finding a spider instead. You uncover a bone, a big one. You stare at it, not animal. Not decorative, human, too large to be missed. Too intact to be discarded, it's just here resting like it owns the place. You gently lift it out of the sand. It's clean. Weirdly so. As if someone washed it before burying it. You hold it in both hands. It's heavy, yes, but something about it feels off. Like it shouldn't be here. Like it's not from today's games. You glance at the column beside you. Carved into its base are tiny scratch marks. Not decoration. Notches. Like someone was keeping count. You start counting them. 30-7. Look back at the bone, then the notches, then the bone again. And that's when it hits you. Someone's buried a whole person here. Not tossed. Placed. Carefully. Hidden beneath layers of sand and time. Mainstream fact. The Colosseum hosted games for over 4 centuries. Between animal hunts, executions, and war reenactments, thousands, tens of thousands died here. And while many were removed and buried in mass graves, some simply disappeared. No name, no ceremony. Just absorbed into the sand. You place the bone on a cloth scrap. You could report it. But you already know what would happen. They'd ignore you, or worse, assign you to dig the rest out. So you do what any sane cleaner would do. You rebury it. With fresh sand. Softly, almost like a prayer. The crowd is getting louder. Another match is coming to an end. You hear the telltale thunk of metal hitting bone. The cheers that follow are thunderous. But in your corner of the pit, it's quiet. Reverent. You pat the sand one last time and whisper, "Sorry." Not sure who it's for. Them. You. The bone. Maybe all of you. You rise slowly, joints popping like old amphora lids. You move to your next patch, a new puddle, a fresh smear. Another souvenir of violence dressed in sunlight and applause. And you get to work, because this is what you do. You mix the old blood with new sand. Press it down like dough. Smooth the surface. Cover the story. And keep pretending none of it ever happened. The water's almost gone. Again, you lift the bucket carefully, since its bottom leaks like a senator's promise, and shuffle toward the back alcove where the runoff from the aqueduct pools. What you get isn't exactly clean water. It's enthusiastic mud with identity issues. But it's wet, and at this point in your day, that's good enough. You pass 2 other cleaners along the way. One's asleep against a wall, broom clutched like a teddy bear. The other is staring blankly at a bloodstain shaped eerily like a chicken. Neither speaks. You don't, either. You're part of a silent brotherhood, now a league of unwilling, underpaid, and frequently ignored mop monks dotted the basin. A trickle of water drips from a rusted spout. You place your bucket underneath, watching it collect at the slowest possible speed. A single drop, pause, another drop. You begin counting the drips just to stay awake, 1, 2, 3. And your mind starts to wander. You imagine a world where you have a real mop, with a head that absorbs instead of smearing, a handle that doesn't splinter. Maybe even dare you dream? A second pair of shoes, so you don't walk home squishing like a festival pig. You sigh. The water's still trickling. You glance around. That's when you see the aqueduct workers on the other side of the wall. Their tunics are white. Actually, white, not a spot of blood, grime, or despair in sight. One's eating an apple. An apple. You watch the juice drip down his chin and briefly consider charging him with crimes against decency. He catches your eye, looks at your bucket, then turns away. Fair enough. You return to your station with what little water you have, careful not to slosh. It's not much, barely enough to soak a rag. You kneel at the next section, a smear so wide you wonder if someone was flung from a catapult. You splash the water, scrub with your wrist, and try not to gag. Quirky fact: Romans often clean public spaces using mixtures of vinegar, water, and on special occasions ashes. The vinegar acted as a mild disinfectant. You suspect yours is just bad wine that never got invited to the party. You switch rags. This one's older, stiffer, smells vaguely of pickled fish. You've stopped asking questions. As you scrub, you notice something odd: a coin embedded in the sand. Not unusual in itself, coins fall. They roll. They vanish into the dirt like reluctant tips. But this one's different. It's gold. You freeze. Not bronze. Not copper. Not even silver. Gold. You look around. No one sees you. The crowd's fixated on whatever drama is unfolding above. A trumpet blares, a roar erupts, and somewhere, something is almost certainly being dismembered. But here, in your tiny quadrant of crusty silence, a single coin gleams like a miniature. Son, you pluck it from the sand. Hold it in your hand. It's real. And heavy. And engraved. A profile noble, sharp, Emperor Commodus. You recognize his face from the posters. That means the coin is recent. Minted this year, which means someone just lost it, which means you hear footsteps. You pocket the coin, instinctively, stupidly. But there's no time for moral reflection. A steward appears. Drains clogged again, he grunts. Near the tiger lift. Of course it is. You nod, gather your tools, and trudge to the assigned spot. It's worse than usual. The grate is choked with hair and cloth, and something you decide is meat adjacent. You pull it all free with your paddle, trying not to look directly at anything that wiggles. The water flows again, sort of. It gurgles anyway. You lean back against the wall and wipe your forehead with your sleeve. Bad move. You've just smeared something unidentifiable across your cheek. You sigh. Dignity is a memory now. A sweet sandal-wearing memory. Mainstream fact: gladiator blood was sometimes collected for medicinal use. Romans believed it cured epilepsy and other ailments. You wonder what kind of illness it would take to make you drink this batch. Your mind drifts again to the gold coin, still warm in your pocket, still yours technically, though you know better. Gold means danger. Gold means someone powerful dropped it. And people don't just lose gold. They misplace it very specifically, often by accident. Sometimes by assassination. You consider turning it in. Then you remember what happened to the last guy who found something. He's not around anymore. There's a rumor he was reassigned to the crocodile pit in Alexandria. You decide to forget about the coin. For now, you head back to your section where the sun is lower now, casting long, golden shadows across the floor. The crowd is still shouting, but the energy is thinning. The games are winding down. Soon, it will be just you and the echoes. You. Take one more look at the stands, and that's when you see her. A noblewoman, elegant, dressed in deep purple, laughing at something a senator said. And on her lap, a coin purse identical to the one the gold piece must have come from. She gestures grandly with her left hand, and for just a moment, her sleeve lifts. You see the exact imprint of the missing coin's engraving on the fabric, faint but unmistakable. Your stomach drops. You look away. You don't want to know her name. You don't want her to notice you. You return to your blood and sand. Because here, in the Colosseum, it's not just about survival. It's about staying invisible. And in Rome, that's harder than it looks. You're back in the pit, your hands aching, knees numb, and half your tunic now stained with something that looks a little too purple to be just blood. The crowd above is beginning to trickle out, like wine draining slowly from a cracked amphora. The final match has ended. The last cheer has echoed. And now, it's just you and the aftermath. But this time, you're going below. The steward approaches, as always without any eye contact or human decency, and says, they need someone in the key. Hypogeum. Elevators jammed. Animal blood everywhere. Take your shovel. Ah, the Hypogeum. Beneath the arena lies the underworld of the Colosseum. A labyrinth of corridors, trapdoors, pulleys, lifts, and cages. You've only been down there a few times. Once to deliver a bucket. Once to mop something they insisted was soup. You did not ask questions. Today, you descend again, this time with purpose and dread. You grab your shovel, sling your bucket over your shoulder like a soldier preparing for a war that smells awful, and head for the staircase near the west gate. It's steep, narrow, and slick with years of damp grime. You descend slowly, the light from above fading into flickering torch glow. At the bottom, the air changes. It's colder down here. Not refreshing cold, just the chill of stone and forgotten things. The passage narrows. You duck beneath low beams, your breath echoing as you walk deeper into the belly of Rome's greatest monument to organized violence. Mainstream. Fact, the Hypogeum was added during Emperor Domitian's reign. It's a 2-level maze beneath the Colosseum, used to stage surprise entrances, animals, gladiators, even small temples, through trapdoors and lifts operated by pulleys and manpower. Today, it's your office. The smell is indescribable. Not just blood, not just damp fur or wet wood. It's a layered smell, centuries of sweat, rot, and rust mingled with the faintest whiff of urine and burned oil. You try breathing through your mouth. Now everything tastes like misery. You find the broken elevator near the central lift shaft. It's stuck halfway, tilted, with blood seeping from the wooden platform like a particularly bad wine shipment. You kneel beside it and wedge your shovel into the grooves. It's heavy. Too heavy. You push. It groans. You push harder. It shrieks. A final shove, and the platform lurches free with a wet snapping sound. Something slides off the edge and lands at your feet. You look down. It's a leopard. Paw. Just the paw. You take a moment to re-evaluate your relationship with this job, with Rome, and with animals in general. Then you pick up the paw gingerly and Set it in a nearby bin labeled organic refuse. You don't ask who labeled it. You just appreciate the gesture. Quirky fact, the hypogeum held not just animals, but entire scenery sets. Trees, temples, chariots. Once, even a fully constructed boat for a miniature sea battle. The workers down here like you were expected to reset the stage in complete darkness, on command, and often while ankle-deep in something recently alive. You start scooping blood from the elevator platform, using your rag to dab at the corners. It's no use. The wood has absorbed most of it. You pour vinegar over it, hoping the smell will at least confuse the worst of the stenches. Behind you, something clinks. You freeze. Metal on metal dot, you turn slowly and see it, one of the old animal. Cages still closed, still locked. But something inside just moved. You approach. The torchlight dances across the bars. Inside, you spot bones, small ones, clean, arranged. Deliberately, and beside them, a carved object. A statue, no bigger than your palm, a lion, with eyes made of tiny polished stones. You stare at it. Who put this here? Why? You back away. Historians still debate whether the hypogeum doubled as a prison or storage space for things the Empire wanted to forget. You're starting to think it was both. You finish cleaning the platform as best you can and report back to the steward. He grunts again. They need the south corridor cleared. Old sandbags broke. You nod. Of course they did. You trudge deeper. Into the maze. The south corridor is narrower, darker. Your torch dims. The walls seem to close in. You hear dripping. The steady patter of water or blood or melted wax falling into shallow puddles. You kneel again. The sand here is soaked. Through. Not red-black. Old. Sticky dot. You begin scooping. The first. Shovel-full sticks. The second resists. The third reveals something smooth and flat. You wipe it. Off. A tablet dot stone. Engraved dot not Latin dot Greek dot you can't read it fully, but you recognize. A few words. Sacrifice. Sleep. Circle. Your thumb brushes over the last symbol. A spiral. Like the one from earlier dot, you wrap the tablet in cloth and hide it behind a loose stone. You don't want to know more. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You return to the pit with your now half-full bucket of evil stew and smear it into the drain. Like a good Roman citizen, the steward doesn't even look up, just says, "Bring more sand when you're done." You nod because that's what you do. You find. You bury. You smooth it all over, until no one remembers anything at all. You come up from the hypogeum blinking like a man reborn, or at least like someone who just spent too long in a poorly lit room full of lion paws and whispering shadows. The sunlight hits you square in the face, warm and brutal. You squint toward the podium wall, where a few noble families are still milling about, their togas pristine, their sandals polished. Their awareness of your existence exactly zero. You're hauling a bucket of blood-soaked sand, a bench shovel, and a philosophical crisis the size of Carthage. None of it is light as you limp across the arena floor. The sand crunches beneath your feet. That dry, hollow crunch tells you everything you need to know. The blood is setting. Soon it'll harden into a crust too solid for vinegar, too stubborn. For your broom fossil, you'll need the brush, an iron one that shaves the floor like it's preparing it for surgery. And you know exactly who has it. The Beastmaster. You sigh, adjust your grip on the bucket, and head toward the east corridor. That's where he keeps his tools. And his attitude. You've met him before. Once. Briefly. He yelled at a lion, and the lion listened you round the corner into the prep wing, where animals are caged, fed, and sometimes not fed, depending on the performance needs. It smells like hay, meat, oil, and fur. Also something sharper like danger seasoned with wet rope. And there he is, the Beastmaster. He's about your height, 3 times your width, and his beard appears to have its own political opinions. His arms are crossed. One boot is resting on a barrel. His tunic looks like it fought in Gaul. And one dot he sees you. He does not smile. You lift a hand in something between a greeting and surrender. I need the floor brush. He doesn't move. Just stares. You shift your weight. Podium steps. Blood's dried. He snorts. Use your teeth. You chuckle. Lightly. But you don't move. You've learned not to blink too quickly around. Him it's considered weakness. After a long pause, he jerks a thumb toward a crate near the wall. You nod, approach, and lift the lid. Inside is the tool, an iron-handled brush with bristles designed to make marble cry. It's heavy, scratched, and smells faintly of bear. You grab it and turn to leave. He grunts. If you break it, I'll feed you to the hyenas. Already. Penciled in, you say, walking briskly. Quirky fact. Roman beastmasters called bestiarii were responsible for training, housing, and motivating the animals used in arena shows. They were part trainer, part tamer, part psychologist, and mostly just unflappable lunatics. You return to the arena floor, now noticeably quieter. Most spectators have gone. Just a few linger, taking in the golden haze of late afternoon. Vendors shout half-heartedly, trying to sell off stale nuts and figs before the sun slips too far. You kneel at the steps, pull out the iron brush, and get to work. It scrapes. Loudly. Harshly. Each stroke grinds dried blood into powder, releasing a red mist that catches the light like glitter's darker cousin. The marble beneath is smooth but deeply scratched. Years of cleaning, of scraping, of layering old death with new sand has worn shallow trenches into the very stone. Like the Colosseum is tired. Mainstream fact. The podium steps were reserved for Rome's elite. Senators, nobles, priests. If blood got on their shoes, heads rolled. Literally. So this section must always be spotless. You scrub harder. Someone above chuckles. You glance up. A boy, maybe 10 years old. Rich tunic. Curly hair, looking right at you. He mimics your motion. Pretends to scrub the air. His parents don't stop him. There, too busy drinking and laughing at something a man in a peacock feather helmet just said. The boy sticks out his tongue. Dirty rat man. You smile. Not kindly. You dip your brush in the vinegar bucket and give the stone a particularly aggressive scrub. The boy scowls. Turns away. Victory. You finish the steps, stand slowly, and stretch. Your back sounds like a wagon wheel hitting a pothole. You rotate your neck, wince, and take a moment to breathe. That's when you notice it. The arena floor is nearly empty, but in the center stands a figure. Alone. Not a steward, not a cleaner, not a guard. A man, wearing armor. He's facing away from you, unmoving. You blink. Was he there a moment ago? You take a step forward. He turns and vanishes. Not like someone walking away. Like someone melting out of view. You don't move. Just stand. Breathing. The brush hangs limp at your side. You stare at the spot for a long time. Then turn and rake a fresh patch of sand over the blood at your feet. Not to clean it. Just to hide it. The sun is low now, casting long shadows that stretch across the arena like fingers reaching for something they lost. You stand in one of those shadows, holding your iron brush, your knees stiff, your mind somewhere between sleep and memory. The last spectators are being herded out by guards who've already started counting their tip money. The trumpets have stopped. The applause has faded. The silence is back, and it's not empty. It's full. You shuffle toward the side gate where discarded weapons and props have been piled for sorting. Spears with broken tips, wooden shields split down the middle, a helmet with a very artistic dent in the shape of what might have been someone else's head. You're not here to clean this. You're here for your pay, because despite the glamorous nature of your work scrubbing, dried entrails from imperial marble, you do technically get compensated. In theory, you wait near the pay table, which is just a wooden slab with a guard, a basket of coins, and a steward who always looks vaguely like he's plotting your murder. You shuffle forward. There's a short line other cleaners, some animal handlers, and one very tired man carrying 2 empty cages and smelling strongly of bear spit. When it's your turn, the steward doesn't even look up. Name? He grunts. You give it. First name only. That's all they need. That's all you have here. He flips a tablet, scrolls a line, pauses. Nothing listed. You blink. I worked the pit. He shrugs. No record. Must have been a favor shift. A favor shift. That's what they call it when you work and don't get paid. Because technically, the job was never officially assigned. It's a wonderful Roman invention, unpaid labor by bureaucratic disappearance. You open your mouth to argue. He doesn't look up. Next. You stand there for a beat too long. The guard shifts his spear slightly, the universal sign for move or get poked. You move, back out into the fading light. No coined. No thanks. Just another missed meal and a set of knuckles that won't stop bleeding from between the cracks. Mainstream. Fact. Arena workers were rarely paid regularly. Most were enslaved or indentured, and even the free workers relied on erratic coin tosses and occasional food scraps. In other words, you work, and maybe you eat. You wander toward the sidewall, where the staff sometimes take breaks before night cleaning begins. A few are already there, Marcellus among them, staring at a fig like it personally insulted his mother. You sit beside him. Say nothing. He hands you half. No words. That's the kind of friendship you have based entirely on mutual suffering and shared fruit. You eat slowly. The fig is soft, warm, and far sweeter than anything else that's touched your lips today. You close your eyes and let the flavor linger, because for this one brief moment, your mouth isn't full of vinegar and sand. Then you hear it. Whistle. Not from a person. From the wind. It snakes through the arches of the Colosseum in a high, fluttering note that sounds almost like a flute, almost like music, until it dips and shifts and becomes something closer to a voice. You both pause. Did you hear that? You ask. Marcellus doesn't move. He just chews, swallows. Nope. You nod. Maybe you didn't either. You return to the pit. The floor is half-shadowed now. One side still lit by dying sun, the other already claimed by evening. You stand at the edge of both where light and dark meet, where blood still glistens faintly but soon will dull. You grab a rake. If you're not being paid, at least you'll finish clean. You begin dragging fresh sand over the worst patches. It sifts, like time itself, covering cracks, footprints, history. You work slowly, not from fatigue, though you are tired enough to sleep standing, but because you've learned that moving slow keeps you sane. You find a torn sash, blue, frayed at the edges. You fold it and set it on the side wall. You find a bone. Again, you cover it. You find what looks like a ring finger still wearing the ring. You bury it deep. Quirky fact. Romans were very superstitious about rings, especially those left behind. by the dead. Some believed they carried curses. Others thought they could be traded for protection in the afterlife. You're not trading anything. You just want the floor to look clean. That's your job, not removal, not truth, not just ... concealment. You. Scatter more sand. Rake it flat. Step back. The arena is ready for tomorrow. New fights, new blood, new secrets. And no one will know what you found today. Not the gold coin still hidden in your pouch. Not the carved lion statue still lingering in the hypogeum. Not the bone that felt too clean to be real. And not the whispering wind that keeps returning round and round, brushing the back of your neck like it has something to say and is just waiting for you to finally listen. But you don't. You turn. You leave. And behind you, the Colosseum sighs. The Colosseum empties slowly, like wine draining from a cracked goblet. You watch the last of the crowd spill out through its arches, senators carried in litters, merchants swatting flies off their robes, servants dragging tired children and discarded snack baskets. The sun is nearly gone now, just a sliver of fire clinging to the western edge of the city. But you're not done, not even close. The steward finds you. Of course he does, and waves you toward the holding cell quadrant. Watch the line. He says, they're feeding the condemned. Dinner with the soon dash. To dash be dashed dead. You gather your tools anyway, because refusing isn't an option. Besides, the blood always starts early in that section. Sometimes from fights. Sometimes from people chewing on their own wrists. You trudge past the edge of the pit, down a side ramp toward the stone enclosures behind the arena wall. Here, beneath the stadium seating, is the prep zone for those who aren't going to make it out. It's where condemned criminals wait for their turn on the sand. And sometimes, they eat dinner. You arrive just as a guard is handing out wooden bowls, filled with something that's either porridge or regret. The men behind the bars barely acknowledge you. They're hollowed out, already somewhere else. Already after the arena in their minds, you take your place near the wall, broom tucked under one arm like a spear. You're not technically a god, but you're not supposed to talk to them either. Just stand there and pretend you're not quietly, evaluating which of them is most likely to cause a mop-related problem later. One of them, older, with a scar from neck to ear, sits right near the bars. He's not eating, just staring at you. You the floor boy? He asks, voice dry as dust. You. Don't answer. He doesn't care. I used to be in the crowd, he says. Had a seat, wife, toga, all that. You glance over. He smiles without warmth. Guess we all get promoted downwards eventually. You look away. Mainstream fact. Not all condemned criminals were poor. Some were fallen nobles, disgraced soldiers, or political enemies. The Colosseum didn't discriminate once the sentence was passed. Everyone bled the same on the sand. The guard shifts behind you, clears his throat. A quiet warning. You nod and step back. Then, against your better judgment, you glance back at the scarred man. He's still watching you. He raises his bowl in a toast. To the cleaners, he says. The last ones who ever touch us. You don't know what to do with that, so you leave. Outside the cells, the air is heavier, cooler. The sun is finally gone, and night is beginning to settle over Rome like a worn-out cloak. You make your way back to the central arena, where the lamps are being lit. Flames flicker along the walls, casting strange shadows over the marble. It's quiet now. Too quiet. That's when you hear the cough. It's soft, wet, human. You follow the sound to a side corridor, barely wide enough to fit two men shoulder to shoulder. A man is slumped against the wall young, dressed like a low-rank fighter, but with no weapons, no armor. You crouch. Check for breath. He's alive, barely and bleeding. You hesitate. Helping isn't your job. You don't get paid for this. And people who try to do more in Rome usually wind up with less still. You reach into your pouch, not for the coin, for the cloth. You press it gently to the wound, just under his ribs. He flinches but doesn't move. Did I win? He murmurs, you. Pause. No, you say softly. Oh. He doesn't speak again. You sit with him until the steward arrives. He sees you, sees the boy, sees the cloth. You touch him again, and it's your shift next. He growls. You stand. You return to your section. You clean in silence, because you've learned that Rome doesn't care who bleeds, only that the floor sparkles when they're done. Quirky fact. Some Roman philosophers believed that suffering cleansed the soul. Others believed it just made better stories. You're not sure what to believe anymore. You just know it's hard to scrub dried blood off. Marble with shaking hands. You finish your last patch as the moon rises. The arena is empty. Again, ready for another morning. You gather your tools. Sling your bucket. You walk the perimeter, eyes scanning for leftover stains, missed pieces, ghosts. And then you see him, the man from the corridor, standing in the center of the arena. UNMOVING. But this time, he doesn't vanish. He just stares at you. You stare back. He lifts a hand, not waving. Just. Acknowledging. Then turns and walks toward the podium wall. You watch him disappear into shadow. You do not follow. You just stand there, alone, surrounded by clean sand. And wonder if you'll ever leave this place, or if the floor is learning your footprints now. The night air wraps around the Colosseum like a blanket that someone forgot to shake the nightmares out of. Rome sleeps or tries to, but the arena doesn't. Not really. Even empty, it hums. Not with voices or footsteps, but with a pressure. A weight that sits on your shoulders long after your shift ends. You feel it now as you walk the inner corridor back toward the supply alcove. Each echo of your sandals sounds less like a step and more like a question. You round a corner and stop. The hallway is flooded. Not with water. With moonlight. It spills through the arched windows and delicate beams, cutting through the dust and casting shadows that dance like performers who didn't get the memo that the show is over. You slow your pace, not out of fear, but reverence. This is your favorite moment of the day, when the arena belongs to no one. No stewards barking orders, no crowds baying for blood, no lions judging your mop skills. Just marble and air, and ghosts that keep politely to the walls. You breathe deeply, and you notice your tunic smells like vinegar, sweat, and the faintest trace of whatever that thing was in the hypogeum. Probably leopard, possibly demon. You sit on the edge of a stone bench and finally let your body sag. Your fingers ache from clenching tools. Your knees feel carved from wood. And your stomach? Empty. Again. The fig from earlier is a memory now. And your pay for the day was exactly 0. But that's not new. You lean your head back, resting it against cool marble. Somewhere behind the wall, you hear a faint thud, probably someone moving props for tomorrow's performance. Or a door closing on a memory. It's hard to tell these days. Then someone sits beside you. You jolt. Glance left. It's the boy. The one from earlier, from the cage. The one who whispered, "Did I win?" You stare at him. He stares forward. You look down at his side. No wound. No blood. No torn tunic. Just stillness. You don't speak because you're not sure if he's real. He turns his head slowly. Thank you, he says. You nod, because what else can you do? He looks back toward the arena. And then he's gone. Not vanished. Not vaporized. Just. No longer sitting there. Like a thought that walked away. You rub your eyes. Maybe you're hallucinating. Or maybe the Colosseum just lets you see things after. Dark. Maybe when you clean blood long enough, the floor starts whispering back. You stand, groaning at the stretch in your spine. Time to finish the last of your rounds. The upper tier is your next stop, not to clean, but to retrieve the chamber. Pot buckets. The ones under the noble seats. Yes, even senators have to relieve themselves. And guess who gets to carry it? You climb the steps slowly. Torchlight flickers along the stone walls. The arches above open to the night sky, and you catch a glimpse of the moon. It's full, white, indifferent. You reach the senator's box. Sure enough, the silver pail is there, covered, but not empty. You lift it carefully, and immediately regret your life choices. The contents slosh with a gurgle that no human should ever hear. You hold your breath. Begin the descent. Halfway down, the bucket leaks. You pause. You whisper a quiet apology to the marble. Then keep going. Mainstream fact. Roman public latrines were complex and surprisingly advanced, with aqueduct-fed flushing systems. But in the Colosseum, many nobles preferred personal solutions. Hence. You reach the disposal area, an open drain behind the south wall. You pour. You pray. You rinse the bucket with the saddest trickle of water available. You consider throwing yourself in. After it, then you remember, you're on shift again tomorrow. As you're returning the bucket, a figure steps into your path. It's the steward. You freeze. He looks you over, then nods. You're being reassigned, he says. Your heart drops. Where? You ask. He smirks. The Emperor's feast tonight. He's using the arena floor for a private dinner. Wants it spotless. You blink. Spotless. As if it's not. Still bleeding. As if tomorrow morning won't undo everything. You nod, because what else can you do? Start now, he says. And walks away. You stand there for a moment, holding your dead mop, your aching arms, your empty stomach, and a sense of humor that's now on life support. Then you go back to the pit. The moon overhead watches. The wind murmurs. And the Colosseum waits, because even at night, Rome needs its floors cleaned, and someone always has to hold the sponge. The word spotless keeps circling in your head like a mosquito with a grudge. You've heard it before, usually from nobles with perfectly clean sandals, who think blood is a decorative feature that politely removes itself after the show. But now, the Emperor's son is dining here, on the arena floor. And that means your job tonight is not just to clean, but to erase. You step back into the center of the Colosseum. Gone is the roar of the crowd. Gone is the frenzy of dying men and snarling animals. In their place, silence, flickering torchlight, and the oppressive weight of perfection. You look around and take stock. The entire southern quadrant is a mess. Not the usual mess, no fresh. Limbs, no new bones, but the subtle mess. Scuffs in the sand. Dried blotches. Discolored patches that suggest someone's spleen had a strong opinion. You've been told this dinner will involve torches, low tables, and dancers. No cushions. This is Rome, not a comfort cult, but still, the floor must be pristine. For optics. For dignity. You laugh, just once. The idea that dignity can exist in a space where 10 people were torn open 6 hours ago is almost funny enough to distract from the smell. Almost. You start with the rake. Long, careful strokes, smoothing the sand into flawless, uniform lines, like a Zen garden curated by Mars himself. Every few steps, you pause, check the texture, scatter fresh grains where the bloodstains show through. It's slow work, painstaking, pointless, but you do it because in Rome, optics are everything. Mainstream fact. Roman elites staged elaborate dinners in absurd places, including tombs, aqueducts, and yes, arenas. These weren't just meals, they were displays of dominance. "Look where I can eat," they'd boast. "Look how beneath me death truly is." You continue raking until your arms ache. Then you switch to the brush, lightly dragging the surface to remove footprints, even your own. That's the part that always gets you. You erase yourself as you go, like a ghost scrubbing away its own shadow. And that's when it happens. You slip. Just a little. Your foot catches on something beneath the sand. You kneel. Brush it back. It's a helmet, bent, bloodied, half buried. Not from today. You know today's props. You clean them. This one is older. Leather strap torn. Etching faded. You lift it slowly. Inside, something rattles. You hesitate. Then, tip it. A single tooth rolls out. Still white. Still human. You stare at it for a long moment. Then dig a shallow hole. Not a proper grave. Just enough. You place the helmet and the tooth inside. Cover them. Pat the sand flat. As if they were never here. You move on. Marcellus joins you soon after. He doesn't speak. Just starts raking beside you. His left foot drags, now new limp. Probably a pulled muscle or an argument with a mule cart. You don't ask. In this job, if someone's still walking, they're fine. Together. You smooth the floor like it's sacred. And maybe it is. Just not in the way the nobles think. They'll dine here tonight. Toast each other with wine you can't pronounce. Compliment the ambiance, never knowing their plates rest inches above old wounds. Quirky fact. Some Roman banquets featured live performances during dinner. Acrobats, poets, even staged executions. Nothing says appetizer like a man reciting Virgil, while someone is slowly lowered into a pit of snakes. You wonder what tonight's entertainment will be. Eventually, the steward appears. He inspects the floor, running his hand over the sand. As if checking for vibes. He grunts. Acceptable. You nearly thank him, but then he adds, "Wait near the entrance in case someone spills something." Of course, you take your position in the shadows, just beyond the arena's main gate. Soon, they arrive. Not many. Just a small procession. 10 nobles, 3 servants, one very bored-looking dancer with bells on her ankles. They walk in slowly, murmuring in admiration. One woman stops. "The sand is beautiful," she says. You allow yourself a single nod. One man adds, "I thought." "There was a fight here today?" The steward replies smoothly, "There was." The nobleman frowns. "But there's no blood?" The steward shrugs. The floor forgets quickly. You nearly choke, but you hold it in. They settle into low couches. Servants bring trays of olives, figs, meats glazed with honey. A wine boy pours from an amphora so large it might as well be a boat. You stand in the dark, holding a brush like a soldier grips, a spear ready just in case someone knocks over their goblet and spills the wrong kind of red. The dancer begins her routine slow, weaving between torches. The nobles cheer, laugh, toast. One tosses a crust of bread over his shoulder. It lands near your foot. You leave it as they feast. You stare at the floor. You cleaned perfect lines, invisible stains, buried ghosts. They see a blank canvas. You see a palimpsest of violence. You wonder who has the more accurate view. Probably neither. Probably the sand. You lean back against the wall. The moonlight spills through the upper arches again, pooling softly on the sand. You exhale and wait for the wine to spill. You wait in the shadows, shoulder against the cold stone wall, brush in hand, watching people who will never know your name drink wine on top of 1,000 ghosts. The torches flicker, the music drones. The nobles laugh like nothing's ever touched them, and maybe nothing has. The sand you rate lies flawless beneath their sandals. No trace of the Thracian who lost his leg this morning. No hint of the screaming woman from yesterday's execution. Just soft lines, gentle curves like someone painted peace over a battlefield. That's your job. To vanish the truth beneath aesthetics. The noble closest to you, a young man with too many rings and too few manners, kicks his sandals off and wiggles his toes in the sand. Surprisingly comfortable, he says. Is this imported? Another noble shrugs. Maybe from Carthage. Or Numidia. The empire has sand to spare. They chuckle. You stare, because you know exactly where this sand came from. You helped haul it in from the southern depot. You remember the split sack, the cut on your palm from the rope, the way the grain stuck to your sweat-soaked tunic. But sure, let them think it's imported. Everything tastes better when it's foreign and someone else bled to carry it. One of the servers approaches with a fresh amphora. He's young, nervous. His hands tremble just slightly as he pours the wine into a silver goblet. He spills a few drops. They land in the sand, right where you raked your best lines. The noble scowls. Clumsy. The server bows, stammering apologies. You step forward, quiet, professional. You kneel beside the spill and press your rag into the sand. It's just wine. You know it's wine, but the color, it spreads like blood. Same shape. Same rate of absorption. Your stomach tightens. You blot it up. Pour a scoop of fresh sand. Rake it smooth. The noble doesn't even glance at you. The others barely pause their chewing. Job done. You step back into your corner. The steward nods once. No, thank you. Of course not. Mainstream fact. Roman banquets followed strict social codes. Dropping food, spilling wine, even laughing too loudly could earn a reprimand, unless you were rich enough not to care. The servants, however, were another story. One wrong move, and you'd be reassigned to latrine duty in a heartbeat. Or worse, the music changes. Plucked lyre, soft drum. The dancer steps into the arena, bells whispering with each movement. She twirls slowly, arms wide, body low to the sand, and just as she passes the main torch stand, she slips. Barely. Just enough. Her foot skims the sand too fast. She stumbles, catches herself, but one of her anklets snaps and flies off into the dark. It lands near you. You bend to pick it up, but the dancer is already there, faster than you'd expect. Breath sharp, hand snatching the anklet from your grasp. She straightens. And for one moment, you lock eyes. She's not like the others. There's a wildness in her gaze. Not fear, not surprise. Something older, as if she knows what this place is. What it takes from people like her. Like you. She nods once, then returns to her performance. You stare at her. Footprints in the sand. Perfect, graceful, like brushstrokes across a page. And then you wipe them away. Quirky fact, some Roman arenas employed dancers before executions, not just for entertainment, but to soften the mood. Audiences were more receptive to violence. They believed when it followed something beautiful. The psychology of cruelty with rhythm and bells. The feast continues. Another toast. Another spilled fig. You clean it. Another careless elbow knocks. A goblet. More wine. You clean it. You are not a person to them. You are a function. A broom with bones. Eventually, they rise to leave. Their shoes crunch the sand. Their laughter echoes into the corridor. One of them hums the dancer's melody badly. Within moments, they're gone. Just like that. And you're left standing in the thing. Arena again. Alone. Except you're not. The dancer is still there. She hasn't moved. She's staring at the podium. At the seat the Emperor's son used. You walk toward her. Slowly. She doesn't flinch. Finally, she says, "He didn't clap." You blink. "Sorry." The boy. The Emperor's son. Her voice is quiet, firm. "He didn't clap." You look toward the podium, now empty. She adds, "I danced well." You nod. You did. She doesn't move. They don't see us. You hesitate. Then. They're not supposed to. She turns to face you fully now. Her eyes are rimmed with coal, smudged from sweat. She holds up the broken anklet. "I want it buried," she says. In the sand, you stare. Why? She shrugs. So it has a place here. So something stays. You kneel. She hands it to you. You dig a shallow trench. Lay the anklet inside. Cover it. Gently. Smooth the surface. She watches. Then walks away. Without a word. Without looking back. You remain kneeling. A moment longer. Your hands pressed to the sand. Feeling the heartbeat of the place. It never stops. Not really. Not even when the blood dries and the crowds go home. It keeps pulsing. And you? You just keep cleaning it up. It's well past midnight now, and the torches burn lower, sputtering as if they too are ready to be dismissed. You're back near the south corridor, sweeping up olive pits and bits of chewed meat the nobles spat into the sand mid-boast. Not even the Colosseum deserves to choke on their leftovers. You rake slowly, methodically, dragging lines through the sand like you're sketching a funeral. It's quiet, almost peaceful, until you hear the squelch. Stop. It's not the usual sound of wet sand shifting underfoot. It's single quotes S. Stickier. More deliberate. You turn toward the source. A man in deep blue robes is walking across the arena floor. He's not supposed to be here. His sandals are gilded. His hair oiled. He holds a scroll in one hand and a scowl in the other. You recognize him. Senator Maximus. Infamous for his appetite, his temper, and his extremely particular expectations regarding public hygiene. He's not walking toward the exit. He's walking toward you. You stand straighter. Not out of respect, but because Maximus is the kind of man who will call for lashes if your posture offends him. He stops 2 feet away, lifting the hem of his robe like the sand might be contagious. You there, blood boy. You nod. Yes, Senator. He gestures vaguely at the podium steps. The latrine beneath my seat. It's unacceptable. You blink. Unacceptable how? He raises an eyebrow. It smells like it's been used. You nearly reply with, "That's because it has, but you value your spine too much." I'll see to it, Senator. He makes a noise like a bored horse and walks off without another word. You take a long, slow breath. Then begin your journey to the least glamorous corner of the Colosseum. The poop shoot. Mainstream fact. The Colosseum featured multiple private relief zones tucked beneath the seating areas for Rome's elite. While the lower classes braved the public latrines outside, senators demanded something more. Exclusive, more private, more your problem. You descend into a narrow stone. Passage behind the podium. The smell hits before the shadows do dot. It's rich, dense, with top notes of fermented figs, middle tones of goat milk, and a long, tragic finish of human pride. You step carefully, avoiding puddles. You've learned the difference between mud and not mud the hard way. The latrine itself is a carved bench with a drain beneath it, leading out through a hidden tunnel that exits into the Tiber River eventually. Or, when clogged, it just stays. Guess what it is right now? You peer inside. It's backed up, and not just with waste. There's a cloth, napkin jammed in the drainpipe. Of course, there is. You kneel. You reach in. You immediately regret everything about your life. You tug. It resists. You tug harder. It slurps out with a sound you'll hear in your dreams for years to come. You set the napkin aside. It's monogrammed, because of course it is, and pour a bucket of water down the hole. It gurgles, then drains. Mostly, you rinse the bench. Douse it with vinegar. Wipe it with what used to be a perfectly nice rag. Then you light a bit of dried laurel leaf from your pouch and set it smoldering beside the entrance, letting the smoke crawl upward and battle the odor. It doesn't win, but it holds the line. Quirky fact: ancient Romans believed laurel smoke purified bad air. It didn't, but it did smell marginally better than the alternative, and in this moment, you cling to anything resembling hope. You exit the latrine passage and climb the steps back into the arena. Your lungs thank you. Briefly. The moon is higher now. The sand glows faintly silver. You look around. It's empty. Almost. Except for a figure standing under the eastern arch. She's back. The dancer. You're not surprised. She approaches slowly, barefoot, leaving soft imprints in the sand. I couldn't sleep, she says. You nod. She looks toward the podium. They'll never remember us, will they? No, you say. She smiles. Then we remember each other. You don't know what that means yet, but you like the sound of it. She takes your hand, places something in your palm. You look down. It's her other anklet. Not broken, still whole. You look up, but she's already gone, vanished behind a column. Like a whisper you forgot to catch, you close your fingers around the anklet, tuck it into your pouch next to the coin, next to the toy, next to the secrets you're not supposed to carry. You finish raking the last of the feast tracks. Smooth the sand beneath the podium, scatter a little fresh grain over the latrine stairs. Then sit on the edge of the arena floor and listen. The Colosseum is never silent. Not truly. There's always something breathing here. You just learn to rake around it. It's almost dawn now. The stars are fading, and the sky above Rome has softened from charcoal to dull gray. Like the city is reluctantly waking after another night of pretending it's not built on bones. You've cleaned more than you thought. Humanly possible. Your arms are numb. Your legs are vibrating. You don't even smell yourself anymore. Your nose has given up. And still, the steward finds you. Because of course he does. He appears at your side like a stain that walks. The lift, he says, eyes fixed on some middle distance. We've got a situation. You blink. Another one. He nods. You don't ask what kind. You just follow. Back into the hypogeum. The stairs creak like they're annoyed to see you again. The torches are low, barely enough to keep the shadows at bay. The deeper you go, the less the Colosseum feels like architecture and more like a living thing that has decided to digest you slowly. The air down here smells like wet rope, old meat, and bad decisions. You reach the lift. It's stuck. Halfway. A wooden platform suspended awkwardly between two levels, tilted just enough to be a problem. And what's worse, there's something on it. heavy, draped in fabric. Not moving. You glance at the steward. He mutters, "Clean up detail, dropped a tail, dropped a body mid-transfer." Again, you sigh. Not because it's difficult, but because it's routine. You brace your hands under the platform and push it. Groans, jerks, drops half a foot. You nearly dislocate your everything. But finally, the platform creaks into alignment and the body rolls off with a wet thud onto the floor of the hypogeum. You freeze, because this body isn't like the others. It's armored, gold dash, trimmed, polished. Greaves, a decorated belt. The kind of outfit meant for performance, not survival. A fake gladiator, one of the emperor's hired showmen. And he's been stabbed in the back, neatly, deliberately, you crouch beside him. Peeling back a fold of cloth, his face is young, smooth, barely scarred. You check the belt. No blood, the wound is clean, surgical. You look at the steward. He's not surprised. Stage politics, he mutters. Looks like he was popular. You stare at the body. Do we report it? He snorts. To who? The man who hired the guy that killed him? Right. Of course, so you bury him, not officially. Just beneath a pile of old sandbags and discarded props. You place his helmet beside him. Brush a layer of dust over his face. You don't know his name, but you smooth the sand anyway, because that's what you do. You make things look better than they are. Quirky fact, there were multiple layers of gladiators. In Rome, some were real fighters, others were actors. Some were paid handsomely to fake fights with dramatic flair for festivals. And when those festivals turned political, the deaths sometimes weren't fake. You return to the arena floor just as the first rays of sun slip through the arches. Everything glows gold again. Everything pretends to be beautiful. You kneel and adjust a few last patches of sand. Someone else will be cleaning this evening's show, but the floor must start perfect. That's tradition. As you rake, something glints in the sunlight. You stop. Half buried near the edge of the pit is a small, curved knife. Not a fighter's blade. Not a soldier's. A kitchen knife. You pick it up. The handle is carved bone. The edge is still sharp. You look around. No one else sees you. You slip it into your pouch beside the coin. The anklet. The carved toy. Your collection is growing. Memories no one asked you to carry. You finish raking. Return the tools. Drop your bucket near the pile of cracked shields and broken mops. Then you head to the dormitory. One small room behind the outer wall. Stone floor. No windows. A straw mat that smells like history and disappointment. You lie down, face up. Eyes open. You're not sure when sleep finds you, but when it does, you dream of sand. Not the dirty, clotted kind, but soft. Endless dunes. Clean. Quiet. Unbroken. Until. In the dream, you notice the rake in your hand and the stains beneath the surface. Even here, you're still working. Even here, the floor isn't clean. You wake up to shouting. Not the sharp, panicked kind that makes you leap out of bed and grab the nearest weapon-shaped object. No, this is Roman shouting long, theatrical, and filled with the kind of irritation that only noblemen and drunk guards can really commit to. You blink. Light slices through a crack in the dormitory ceiling. Judging by the angle, it's late morning, which means you overslept. Which also means someone else started your shift, which is either a gift from the gods or a setup. You sit up slowly. Your back cracks like a dried amphora. Your knees complain. In Latin. Outside the dormitory, the arena's already buzzing. You hear the clatter of swords practice fights, probably a warm-up match before the real show. You also hear the unmistakable sound of someone vomiting. Could be nerves. Could be the arena wine that you stretch, splash a handful of water on your face from a cracked jug, and gather your tools. They're right where you left them, leaning against the wall like loyal, disrespected friends. Your stomach growls, but you ignore it. No time for breakfast. You step out into the corridor and immediately get grabbed by a steward. Not the usual one. This one's new, younger, too clean. He looks you up and down like he's only just realized you're alive. You're the pit cleaner? You nod. Technically, yes. Emotionally, not today. Double quotes good. You've been reassigned. There's an issue. In the barracks, you frown. The gladiator barracks? He nods. Blood, lots of it. Not from the games. You blink. So a brawl? He leans closer. No, something else. He doesn't elaborate. Of course, not so you follow. You've been to the barracks before, but only to clean floors, not corpses. They're tucked behind the east wing of the Colosseum, close enough for fighters to hear the roar of the crowd, far enough that no one sees them cry. You walk through the entrance low ceiling, flickering torchlight, the scent of sweat, steel, and sadness. And then you see it. Blood everywhere. Splattered across the floor, the walls, even the ceiling. Not like a fight, like a message. You stand in the doorway, tools in hand, unsure where to begin. A god waves you in. Don't touch the body, just the rest. You freeze. There's still a body? He shrugs. For now. You step inside. The Fae. Barracks are quiet. Too quiet. No grunting. No clashing of training blades. Just the slow drip of blood from a bench onto the floor. Mainstream fact. Gladiators lived communally, but their world was anything but brotherly. Fights broke out. Rivalries festered. The line between sparring and murder was often thinner than a dagger's edge. You begin with the floor. That's always safest. You pour a mix of vinegar and water over the biggest puddle, watching it spread. Like a ghost across the tiles. You scrub. Hard. But it's soaked into the grout, into the foundation. You know the drill. You're not here to remove the stain, only to convince everyone it was never there. As you work, you notice something strange. The walls, they've been marked, not just splashed, but carved. Small scratches, repeated symbols, circles, spirals. A pattern you've seen before. In the sand. In the tablet. In the shadows. You swallow. Not fear yet. Just recognition. You keep scrubbing. Eventually, you reach the bench. The body is gone now, carried out without ceremony. But the shape of him remains. A silhouette in blood. Like the floor remembers. You kneel. Scrub. Gently. Try not to think too hard. But you can't help it. What happened here wasn't a fight. It was a ritual. Quirky fact. Some fringe. Historians believe underground cults operated within the Colosseum's secret. Societies of gladiators, handlers, and even cleaners, bound by symbols and silence. No proof, just rumor. And blood. You look up at the spiral again, and it shifts. Not physically, but something in your mind moves. You blink. Shake it off. You're tired. That's all. You finish cleaning. Report back to the steward. He doesn't ask what you saw, just says, "Back to the pit." You nod. You return to the arena floor. Where the crowd is cheering. The games have begun. You take your place in the shadows. Back to your rake. Back to the blood. Back to pretending. None of this is unusual, even when the floor whispers otherwise. The crowd roars. 1,000 voices tumbling over each other in drunken celebration. You stand just inside the arena's eastern gate, in that strange no-man's land between visibility and shadow. No one notices you here, unless they need you. Or unless something breaks, today. It's not something, it's someone. You watch as a gladiator stumbles backward, arms flailing. He's big Thracian style, curved blade, tall shield, but he's off balance. Blood pours from a deep cut across his ribs, too clean to be an accident, too deep to ignore. He drops to his knees, then falls onto the sand like a puppet whose strings just gave out. The crowd screams, approval. You exhale, then step forward, because this is your job. The other gladiator raises his arms, basks in the adoration, then turns away. The fallen man twitches once, twice, then lies still. And now it's your turn. You walk across the bay, sand with a stretcher and 2 assistants. The stretcher creaks. The assistants don't speak. They know the drill. This isn't rescue, it's removal. You crouch beside the body. His eyes are open, still blinking. You hesitate. He's not dead. Mainstream fact. Gladiators were often treated for wounds between fights, especially if they were valuable. Doctors employed by the Lanista gladiator school. Master would assess whether a fighter could be saved if he was profitable enough. But this one? You can already tell. He's not going to make it. You and the others lift him onto the stretcher. Blood smears the wood. His breath rattles. You hear it up close now, a wet, bubbling sound. The kind that doesn't last long. You carry him toward the hypogeum. Down into the dark again. He doesn't scream. He laughs. A soft, broken laugh that stops halfway. You reach the makeshift infirmary. A corner of the underground chamber with 2 cots. 1 doctor and a bowl of water that should have been changed a week ago. You lay him down. The doctor glances once, then looks away. He's done. Just like that. No effort. No salve. No suture. Just he's done. The assistants leave. You stay. Because he's still blinking. Still trying to say something. You lean down. He whispers, "Don't let them feed me to the cats." You blink. What? He tries again, weaker. They said, "Tomorrow, lions for leftovers." Then he's gone. Not with a scream, but with an exhale, like a candle giving up. You sit there for a moment. Just you and the body. You look at his hand. There's a mark on the palm. A spiral. Small, faint, burned in. You've seen it before. You don't know what it means, but you know it means something. You cover his eyes with your palm, not as a priest, not as a friend, just as someone who doesn't want to see them anymore. You stand. Quirky fact. While many believe fallen gladiators were given grand funerals, most were quietly disposed of, especially the less famous ones. Some were sold to tanners for their leather. Others were recycled into the games. Waste not was a Roman principle, after all. You return to the arena floor. The sand is already raked where he fell. You didn't do it. Someone else did. Someone fast. The spiral in your mind still spins. You go to the corner where the dancer once stood. You rake it. Gently, like you're trying not to disturb. Something invisible. You glance at the crowd. They cheer again. They don't know what they're cheering for anymore. You look at the next pair of fighters entering the ring. They seem younger today, or maybe you just feel older. The steward approaches. "When this match ends, I want you to take the waste buckets out." You nod, because what else do you do? You head toward the storage alcove and retrieve the buckets, heavy, sloshing, the color of old nightmares. You carry them along the side corridor to the disposal chute, a stone tunnel leading to the drains. Under the southern wall, as you pour, you hear something. Not a footstep, not a rat, a voice. The sand remembers. You freeze. Look behind you. No one. You pour the rest. Try not to think. Try not to remember the gladiator's last words. Try not to remember the spiral burned into his hand. You walk back toward the light, but it doesn't feel like you're getting closer. It feels like the Colosseum is breathing in, and you are getting smaller. You emerge from the corridor with your hands still damp and your breath held a little too long, like you just stepped out of a confession booth instead of a Roman sewage duct. The sun is higher now, washing the arena in sharp gold and heat. It's nearly midday, and the crowds are peaking. The sand, from a distance, looks beautiful. From up close, it's chaos barely concealed. You pass another set of fighters preparing at the entrance too. Gauls in bronze helmets with feathers that bob dramatically as they nod to each other. One spits on the ground. The other crosses himself in some local fashion, a mix of prayer and superstition. They don't see you. You're invisible again. As always, you head toward the equipment rack to return your empty buckets. On the way, a familiar voice calls out, "Blood Boy." It's him again, Senator Maximus. Today, he's holding a fan of white ostrich feathers and sweating like someone who's just discovered heat for the first time. You brace yourself. "You've been in the pit lately?" he asks, nose wrinkling. Nod. "Yes, Senator." He looks toward the arena, grimaces, and mutters, "Something's wrong with the floor." You blink. "Wrong? How?" He narrows his eyes. "It's too quiet, too smooth, looks like a grave." You want to say, "That's because it is," but you don single quotes T. He waves a hand. "Scatter it. Rough it up a little. Make it look alive." Then he turns and walks off, fanning himself furiously. You sigh. Then grab your rake. Again. Mainstream fact: Roman senators held enormous influence over the games. Their preferences could change everything from fighter pairings to arena layout. One senator complaining about a vibe was enough to send half the staff scrambling. You walk back into the arena floor and begin raking, not smoothing this time, but roughing, creating motion, imperfection, like a performance of randomness. You dig in deep, dragging furrows across the surface, then lighter ones, then a swirl, almost a spiral. You stop, your eyes narrow. It's that shape again. You didn't mean to make it, but there it is, pressed into the sand, just like in the barracks. Just like in the tablet. Just like the gladiator's palm. A spiral. It's starting to feel less like coincidence, more like pattern. You wipe it away quickly, but the impression lingers in your head. Quirky fact: in early Roman culture, spirals were symbols of cycles, of time, of fate, of rebirth. By the empire's peak, the symbol had faded from popular use, except in fringe cults and mystery religions. Some believed it marked hidden truths, or forbidden knowledge. You return the rake. Lean on it. The match ends. Blood again. You watch. The fallen man twitch, then lie still. Another team moves in to remove the body. You stay back. You've done your share today. Instead, you head to the shaded edge of the arena. And that's when you see her. The dancer, again. She's seated on a stone bench, arms around her knees, watching the crowd, not the games. She sees you. You hesitate, then walk over. She speaks before you. "Can, did you bury it?" You nod. "The anklet?" "Yes." She smiles, not with joy, but with knowing. Then she reaches into her bag and pulls out a scrap of parchment, folds it into your hand. "Burn this," she says, "but read it first." "Not here." not near the sand. You frown. She stands and walks away, bells on her ankles silent for once. You open your hand. It's a crude drawing. A spiral with a figure in the center. Tiny, faceless, holding a rake. You fold it back up. Stuff it deep into your pouch, beneath the knife, beneath the toy. You feel like something has tilted under your feet. You head toward the storage room. Not because there's something to clean, but because it's quiet, and you need to think. Inside, it's cool. Smells like oil and dust and time. You sit on an old stool. Take out the parchment. Unfold it again. There are words beneath the drawing. Just 4. The floor remembers everything. You stare, and suddenly, you're not tired anymore. You're alert. Your pulse is loud in your ears. The air in the storage room feels thinner, like the space itself is pulling back. You pocket the parchment, and for the first time, you don't feel like a cleaner. You feel like someone standing at the edge of something. You don't move, not for a long time. You just sit there on the stool, fingers wrapped tight around that folded scrap of parchment, as if it might leap out of your hand and burrow into the walls. The words repeat in your head like a chant. The floor remembers everything. You look down at your hands, still stained, still raw. How many things have they wiped away? How many stories have they erased? You've been working in this arena for years, and only now are you wondering, what if nothing you cleaned ever really disappeared? You tuck the parchment back into your pouch, and you make a decision. You're going back into the hypogeum, not because someone told you to, because you need to look. The descent is colder than usual. Or maybe that's just you. The torches haven't been replaced since morning, so the corridor flickers in half-light. You pass the storage room, the body chute, the trapdoor lift. Each corner greets you like an old ghost, but you're not here to reminisce. You're here to dig. Literally. You reach the spot where they dumped the dead. Showman, the one in gold-trimmed armor, the one stabbed deliberately. The sandbags you used to cover him are still there, but something's wrong. They've been moved. Shifted. Not by animals. By hands. You kneel. Start pulling the bags aside. You expect to find the body. You don't. It's gone. No drag marks. No blood trail. No sign it was ever there, except the helmet, still in the same spot. Only now, it's been turned, facing you, like it knows. You pick it up. Turn it over. Inside the rim, scratched by a blade or nail, is a spiral. Of course, you don't bother to whisper curses anymore. You place the helmet back gently. Stand. And now you're sure of something. This isn't about the fights, or the senators, or even the blood. This arena is alive, and it's starting to wake up. Mainstream fact. Some Roman superstitions revolved around genius loci, the spirit of a place. Temples, forests, and even roads were thought to have guardian spirits. The Colosseum, by size and spectacle alone, would have been seen as a powerful and potentially dangerous entity. You head deeper into the hypogeum. You pass the beast cages, empty now, but still reeking of musk and raw meat. You remember that time a lion swatted the iron bars so hard it dented the hinge. You had to clean up the arm of the man who installed it. You passed a sacrificial altar. No one calls it that anymore, of course. Now it's storage platform. 3B. But the grooves in the stone, still there. Still stained, still whispering. And finally, you reach the old vault. It's sealed off now. Not with iron, but with fear. An archway bricked over with pale limestone. One of the few renovations the Empire ever bothered with down here. You walk to it. Place a hand on the cold wall. Close your eyes, and that's when you hear it. Not. Sound.memory.laughter.screams.breath.a. Crowd, long gone. A cheer that echoes without mouths, and underneath it all, underneath it all, voice. Not in Latin, not in Greek. But in something older, something made of dust and bone. You open your eyes, and there, at the base of the sealed arch, is a crack. Small. But big enough. You drop to your knees, start scraping away the mortar with your knife, bit by bit, flake by flake. You don't know why you're doing this. Only that you have to. You stop when you hit something soft. Sand. Packed behind the stone, but not ordinary sand. This is dark. Fine. It smells like nothing. No dust, no blood, no time. You reach in. Your fingers brush something cold. Metal. You grip it. Pull gently. It slides free. A medallion. Simple. Unmarked, except for a spiral etched into its center. You sit back. Let the torchlight dance across its surface. It's not Roman, not Greek. It doesn't belong to any legion or temple, you know, but it feels old. Older than the Colosseum, older than the city. You turn it over in your palm, and the voice returns. Just one word, whispered but clear. Remember. You close your fist around the medallion. Stand. And you don't feel tired anymore. You feel watched. Quirky fact. Some ancient medallions were not coins at all, but talismans, objects passed in secret among cults and mystery religions. They weren't for buying bread. They were for buying belonging. You return to the surface. The sky is darker. Now, clouds gathering over the amphitheater. The next match is about to begin. But you're not thinking about sand, or blood, or rakes. You're thinking about the kraken. The wall. The spiral. The medallion in your palm. And the sense that something beneath the Colosseum has started turning. You don't go back to your post. You can't. You walk the perimeter of the arena instead, hugging the inner wall where the stone is cool and the shadows are deeper. The crowd is distracted by the next match, something loud and theatrical involving a chariot, 2 blindfolded gladiators, and at least 1 poorly trained bear. You barely notice it. Your fingers are closed tight around the medallion in your pocket, and all your attention is somewhere below. The spiral isn't leaving your mind. Neither is that whisper. Remember. You don't know what you're supposed to remember, but the feeling is like an itch behind your thoughts, growing sharper with every step. You pause behind the Emperor's box. There's a narrow staircase here, mostly unused, leading up to the Tendendade. Private overlook. Normally, this is off-limits. Guards would block you. Slaves would glare. But today, it's empty. You climb it. Slowly. Each step feels heavier than it should. At the top, you reach the shaded arch where the Emperor sometimes sits, though most days he sends a proxy. Today, the cushion is untouched. The goblet beside it still full. No one noticed. You step forward, and from here, the whole arena stretches beneath you. You see everything. The crowd, the sand, the pit. But more than that, you feel it, like the floor isn't just ground, but skin. Like the tunnels below aren't just structure, but veins. The Colosseum is alive, and it's dreaming. Mainstream fact. The Romans believed in human divine presence in objects and places. Even buildings could possess a spirit. The Colosseum, built with the sweat and bones of thousands, may well have earned one the hard way. You look down at the sand. At the rake marks you made earlier, but they're gone. Erased. Not by wind or footsteps. By intention. The floor is smooth again, like a slate waiting for a message. You glance over your shoulder, expecting anyone to be watching you. No one is. You kneel beside the Emperor's chair. brush your hand across the stone floor, and there, faint as breath, is another spiral, smaller this time, scratched into the mortar between the flagstones. You run your thumb over it. The medallion in your pouch grows warm. You pull it out, hold it over the spiral, and click. Soft noise. The flagstone beneath you shifts. Just a hair. You press. It sinks. A seam opens, revealing a compartment beneath the chair. Inside, a scroll wrapped in oilskin. You don't think, you just take it, tuck it into your tunic, like stolen treasure, and walk away. You descend the stairway, back into the corridors. Back into your world. You find a quiet alcove near the animal, cages long. Since empty. You sit, unroll the scroll, and there it is. The spiral, drawn again and again across the parchment, in various sizes. At the center of the page, a map. Not of Rome. Not exactly, but of the Te Vinengazas Colosseum. With layers beneath it. Tunnels. Rooms. Symbols. And a single line of text in a sharp, practiced hand. The blood feeds the eye. The eye remembers. You stare. Eye? What eye? Quirky fact. Some fringe theories suggest the Colosseum wasn't just a sports venue, but also served ritual purposes. The design, with its symmetry, subterranean layers, and sacrificial echoes, has drawn comparisons to ancient temples. Wild, of course. But so is everything else you've seen lately. You turn the scroll over. There's a symbol on the back. Not a spiral, a circle with a vertical slit. Like a pupil. It's watching you. You can feel it. You roll the scroll up again. Hide it beneath your tunic. And when you stand, you see someone watching you. Across the corridor. Half dash, shadow. Silent. The dancer. Again. She says nothing. Just nods. Then vanishes. Not dramatically. Just. Around the corner, like a breath you can't catch. You follow, but when you turn the corner, she's gone. Only a mark remains on the wall where she stood. A fresh one, scratched, deep. Not a spiral this time, but an eye. Same as the one on the scroll. You reach out. Touch the stone, and it's warm. Not sun dash, warm. But alive. You pull your hand back and whisper to no one. What are you? The corridor doesn't answer, but something deeper does. A THRUM. Faint. Steady. Like a heartbeat in the foundation. And suddenly you understand. The Colosseum isn't just remembering. It's waking up. You don't return to the surface. Not yet. Not with this new weight in your tunic. And that thrum still pulsing underfoot like the slow exhale of something ancient and annoyed. You turn back down the corridor, this time toward the oldest part of the hypogeum past, the beast pens and the rotting crates of unused props, toward a passage so narrow that even rats hesitate. There's a door. It shouldn't be here. You've passed this spot 100 times, and it's always been just a blank curve of stone. But now there's a wooden door, warped and iron-banded, standing just slightly ajar, like it's been waiting for you to notice. You step forward. Your hand reaches for the handle before your thoughts can catch up. And it moves. Not away. Not aggressively. Just gently, as though pulled from the inside. It creaks open, revealing a space that doesn't fit. It's too large, too tall. The ceiling stretches up beyond the torchlight, lost in shadow. The walls curve inward like the chamber was carved from a massive egg. Sand covers the floor, dark, wet, undisturbed. And there, in the center, sits a stone pedestal. With an eye carved into it. Not just scratched, sculpted. Deep and deliberate. Lifelike. You Step inside. The door eases shut behind you. Of course it does. Mainstream fact. The Colosseum was built over the ruins of Emperor Nero's private lake, part of his infamous Domus Aurea. The site already carried layers of history, wealth, and superstition long before the first stone of the amphitheater was laid. You approach the pedestal. Your foot sinks slightly into the sand, as if something beneath it stirs. You hesitate. Then reach into your tunic and place the medallion into the hollow at the eye's center. It fits. Perfectly. You step back. Nothing happens at first. Then a hum. Low, bone deep, like the Colosseum is, clearing its throat. The sand ripples. The eye blinks. Not physically, but in your mind, like something has just noticed you, like you've said hello in a language that hasn't been spoken in centuries. You drop to one knee, not out of reverence, but because the air just got heavier. Then the whispers start. Too many voices, too many languages, none of them kind. You hear names. Places. Memories not yours. A gladiator weeping before a fight. A woman hiding her child beneath the bleachers. A boy lost in the tunnels, calling for a mother who never came. All of them here. All of them trapped. Quirky fact. Some early Christians believed places of mass violence retained the souls of the damned purgatorial hotspots. They called them Rome. Layered with martyrdom and blood, had several. The Colosseum was chief among them. You press your hands over your ears. It doesn't help. The voices are inside. And then one cuts through. Clear. Familiar. Your own. You hear yourself saying, "The floor remembers everything." And the sand shifts. It opens. Just a little. A circle. Widening. You stagger backward as the center of the room reveals a stone staircase descending into the dark, carved in a perfect spiral. No torches. No handrails. Only down. You stare. Because, clearly, you've lost your mind. And yet. You step in. Because you've been following this spiral for too long to stop now. Each footfall is silent. The stone doesn't echo, doesn't breathe. You descend. Around. And around. The temperature drops. Not cold still. Like a cave untouched by air. At the bottom. A chamber. Circular. Ancient. And on the far wall, a mural drawn in faded pigment and blood. It shows a crowd, but not cheering. Worshipping. A central figure stands on the sand, arms raised. Not a gladiator, not a priest. A cleaner, holding a rake like a scepter. And above him, a spiral. Not flat, but rising like a staircase. Like this staircase. You step closer and realize this place wasn't a storage room. It was a shrine, dedicated to you, or someone like you. Someone who cleans the floor. Who removes the blood. Who sees what no one else wants. And suddenly, everything makes a terrible kind of sense. You were never just a cleaner. You were an observer. A rememberer. A vessel for the memories everyone else tried to bury. You look down at your hands. Calloused. Dirty. Sacred. And for the first time, you understand why nothing ever leaves this place. Because you've carried it. All of it. You stagger back up the stairs. The eye is still there. Open. Watching. You don't take the medallion back. You leave it in the pedestal. Where it belongs. Whispers fade. The room breathes. And the door opens. Not for exit, but for release. You walk out slowly. Past the beast. Pens. Past the cracked statues. Back into the light. And the Colosseum seems quieter now. Not peaceful. Just acknowledged, like a giant that recognizes the small creature crawling on its skin. You are the rake in its memory, the cleaner of its nightmares, and you are not alone. You don't speak to anyone for the rest of the day. Not the steward who waves you toward the next match. Not the new boy fumbling with a blood bucket. Not even the guards who chuckle as you pass, joking about how the sand keeps eating people. Lately, you just nod, keep walking, keep feeling, because everything under your skin is humming now, not loud. Not frantic dot, just dot dot constant, like your blood's been tuned to some old frequency. You know things. You don't understand them yet, but you know them, like how the Colosseum breathes through its stones, how the spiral staircase wasn't built it, grew, how the cleaner isn't a profession, it's a position, and you've been filling it your whole life without ever realizing it. You find your old stool tucked in the shadows beneath the stairs, same as always. You sit, you watch. Another match ends. A man falls. Not spectacularly, not dramatically. Just a slow collapse, like a building whose last support beam has cracked. The crowd cheers. You don't. You stand, walk to the edge of the sand, and you don't. Clean. Not yet. You kneel beside the body. Look into the man's face. His eyes are wide, but not afraid. More. Resigned. You whisper, "Do you remember?" He blinks. Once. Then dies. You rake the sand. Softly. Respectfully. Mainstream. Fact. Romans saw death as a transition, not just for the soul, but for the space it occurred in. The location of a person's death marked that ground as changed, touched by fate. Even the arena floor, already soaked in blood, was sometimes treated with reverence after a particularly noble death. You smooth the final trace of him away. And then you do something new. You draw just a small spiral. One loop, then gone. It's not for anyone else, just you. To remember. You return to the storage corridor. And as you pass the wall where the dancers stood yesterday, you see a message scratched in charcoal. You open the eye. Don't close it. No signature. No sound. Just a reminder. You walk deeper into the underground, past the cages, past the spiral chamber. To the vault you open. It's still ajar. Still breathing. You step inside, but you don't descend this time. Instead, you sit at the top of the spiral stairs and wait, because something is coming, and you need to be ready. You unroll the scroll. Again, trace the map with your finger. The layers of the Colosseum aren't just stone and sand. They're memory, and you've started unlocking them. You flip to the back, the eye symbol, the pupil staring back at you. You whisper, "What are you?" And this time, the answer isn't a whisper. It's a memory. Your own, but one you didn't know you had. You're younger, alone in the corridors, sweeping too close to the animal. Pen. A lion roars. You drop your broom, fall backward, land on the sand, and it moves. Not because of the lion, because of you. Just a ripple, a twitch, but it moved. You thought it was a dream. You never told anyone, until now, because now you realize the Colosseum has always known you, and now you know it back. Quirky fact. Certain mystery religions in Rome use symbols of eyes and spirals as part of initiation rituals representing sight, memory, and the journey inward. Very little survives about them. Probably on purpose. You close the scroll. Stand. Step back into the corridor. It feels different now, like you're inside the memory of a place, not the place itself. Everything's a little softer at the edges. The light, the sound, even your own footsteps. You return to the surface one more time. The crowd is thinner now, the sun lower, the shadows longer. You walk to the edge of the arena again, and you see it. Not just the fights, but the story, the layer beneath the blood, the meaning beneath the calm. Movement dot. You watch a new match begin, two fighters circling, and you know which one will fall. Because the floor already knows dot. Because the Colosseum already chose. And you're not just a cleaner anymore. You're a witness. A vessel. A rememberer. And you understand now. The real power of the spiral isn't just memory. It's that it never ends. It keeps turning. And you turn with it. The next morning begins like any other. Almost. The sky is unusually gray for Rome. Woolly clouds hovering just above the rooftops, as if the heavens themselves are eavesdropping. You wake before the trumpet calls, your body already in motion. Before your mind catches up, your hands move automatically, washing your face, wrapping your sandals, tying your sash. But your thoughts are elsewhere, still spiraling, still turning. You make your way to the Colosseum, same as always, but you feel like you're walking toward a dream you've already had. The guards nod at you. You nod back. You enter through the cleaner's door, past the blood buckets, the vinegar-soaked rags, the unused props, and stop, because someone's waiting. It's the dancer. Not watching this time. Waiting. She leans against the column like she's been there for hours. You opened it, she says simply. You nod. And it's not finished. No. She agrees. It never is. She walks beside you now, as though that's always been her place. No bells on her ankles today. No coins. Just silence and intent. You descend together, deeper than you've ever gone. Past the cages. Past the rake room. Past even the spiral pedestal. There's another corridor. Now. One that wasn't there yesterday. Or maybe it was. You just couldn't see it. Mainstream fact. The Colosseum has countless undocumented passages. Most of them collapsed or repurposed over centuries. Archaeologists still discover sealed chambers and tunnels, often beneath layers of unrelated structures. Built long after the games ended. This one feels older than all of them. Your footsteps echo strangely. Not ahead. Not behind, but within. Like the air itself is looping back. At the end of the tunnel, a door carved from obsidian black stone. No hinges. No handle. Just the spiral. You place your hand in the center. It's warm. And it pulls. The stone opens without a sound. Inside, nothing but sand. A circular chamber. Another. One. But not like the others. This one is waiting. You both step inside. And the door closes behind you. No fear. Not no panic. You know you'll leave. Eventually. But not yet. Because in the center of the room is a pit. Shallow. Just deep enough to kneel in. You walk to it. And kneel. Because suddenly it feels right. The dancer circles once, then sits across from you. You know what you are. She says. You nod. I'm the rake. You reply quietly. The cleaner. She smiles. The rememberer. Quirky fact. Some ancient Roman rituals used symbolic burial and resurrection to represent initiation. The initiate would lie in a pit, covered lightly in soil or fabric, and then emerge as a new version of themselves, reborn in memory. You take the scroll from your tunic, unfurl it across the sand. The spiral now glows faintly at the edges, like it's been activated. Like you've been activated. The walls around you shift, not physically, but visually. They become windows. Moving pictures. Of fights. Of deaths, of quiet moments between bloodshed. An old gladiator kissing a lucky charm. A cleaner sneaking extra bread to a slave boy. A lion blinking slowly before a final charge. The Colosseum remembers because you remember. You are the last archive. The breathing scroll. The spiral. Incarnate. You press your hand to the sand, and the images stop because they've been seen. Acknowledged. Released. The spiral slows. The hum fades. And when you open your eyes again, you're back. Not in the secret chamber, not beneath the ground, but standing on the arena floor, sunlight on your face, spectators shouting, life continuing. But something's changed. You glance down. The medallion is gone, but your hands still feel full, as though you're carrying something. Bigger now, something. Quiet, and eternal. You walk to the edge of the sand, pick up your rake, and for the first time, you're not just erasing footprints. You're translating them. You're writing the story backward. You are memory in motion. You are silence in the form of service. You are the one who stays behind when the crowd leaves, and listens. Because the floor remembers, and now, so do you. You stay long after the last match ends, after the crowds have filtered out, their sandals kicking up lazy puffs of dust, after the vendors have stopped shouting and the torches along the corridors have dimmed into smoky, sputtering stubs, after the sun has dipped so low that the Jeaned Colosseum's long shadow stretches all the way to the Tiber. You stay, because the arena isn't empty, not to you. You walk the perimeter once more, dragging your rake through the sand, not to smooth it, not to clean, but to trace the shape of things long buried. A loop here, a path there, a pattern that no one will notice except you and perhaps the dancer. If she returns, the spiral forms again beneath your hand. Almost by instinct, now, your body knows the gesture, your feet know where to pause. And the sand listens, because you're not moving on it anymore. You're moving with it. Mainstream fact. The Colosseum hosted events for nearly 4 centuries before falling into disrepair. In later years, it was used as housing, a fortress, even a quarry. But long before that, it was the heartbeat of Rome, where life, death, and spectacle collapsed into one roaring echo. You pause near the eastern gate, the one where condemned prisoners used to enter, the gate of death. They called it. You used to avoid it. Now, you lean against it. Close your eyes and feel the silence breathe. You see visions again, not forced, not haunting. Just remembered. A child sneaking into the stands to see his father fight, a slave. Girls selling cooled wine behind the gates, sneaking sips and winks. A cleaner like you singing softly as he scrubs. Long before your time, the Colosseum isn't evil, it isn't good. Either is just old, heavy, with memory, and someone has to carry it. That someone is you. You return to your chamber, a tiny cell tucked beneath the stairs. Barely large enough to stretch your legs. It used to feel like a cage. Now it feels like a library. You sit and you start to draw. Not pictures. Maps. Spirals. Tunnels. Moments. You record them not to share, not to teach, but to release. Because some memories just want to breathe again before they settle. Quirky fact. Roman slaves often had secret methods of keeping track of their lives. Carvings under beds, chalk marks on walls, coded knots in their garments. History was dangerous, but forgetting was worse. Your hand doesn't tire. Your eyes don't droop, even as the moon rises and the dear city fades into hushed candlelight. You are alone, but no longer lonely. And for once, the Colosseum doesn't feel like a monster. It feels like a companion. One that growls. One that mourns. One that remembers. And in that moment, as you press your final spiral into the corner of your sleeping mat, you understand something. You were never meant to survive the Colosseum. You were meant to stay. To witness. To become part of what it is. And that's not a punishment. It's a purpose. You lie down, hands still stained, back still sore, mind still circling. But you are quiet now, and the Colosseum is too, for tonight. You stretch out slowly on your sleeping mat, your body sinking into the worn straw and creaking floor beneath. Everything feels distant. Now the crowd, the blood, the noise. It all recedes like a tide, pulling away from the shores of your mind, leaving only stillness behind. The room darkens, not completely, just enough. You can still make out the shape of the rake leaning in the corner, the faint outline of your last spiral drawn in the dust beside you. It's fading now, as all spirals eventually do, but you know it's still there, etched somewhere deeper than stone. Your breathing slows. The weight of the day drifts off your shoulders like ash, and you feel the quiet settle in. Not like emptiness, but like an old friend wrapping you in their arms. Gentle, unmoving, eternal dot above. The Colosseum creaks and shifts as if sighing with you. Its bones settle. Its heartbeat fades. You imagine the floor above, smooth again, still again, awaiting the next story, the next life to pass across its surface. But that won't be tonight. Tonight. Everything is still. You are safe here. In this moment, in this breath, you've survived not by fighting, but by remembering. And that is enough. Let your thoughts spiral softly outward now. Let the weight of history slip beneath your skin. Let the silence be the final. Memory. Sleep. Now. Sleep.